After starting the Rabituza defense unique scenario, Sunraku faces a barrage of snakes unleashed by the Gold Hunine clone inside the hole. As the battle progresses, he eventually encounters the real Colossus and engages in an intense battle with her. During the fight, Sunraku is forced to make difficult decisions in order to win without suffering any casualties. How will Sunraku fare in his third battle against the Colossus? And how will he perform in the clan battle against Schwarzwolf that immediately follows the unique scenario? Let's find out. Gold Hunine's snakes were already chasing him at that point, and she once again ordered them to kill Sunraku and unleash all their sordid cruelty upon him. Sunraku said that he had nearly been caught when the giant snakes charged at him, especially with Gold Hunine accompanying them. He admitted that escaping was his only option at that point. However, how was he supposed to navigate inside such a small cave? He also said that it was not even a bonus unique scenario, so there should not have been any Colossus there. After saying that, he noticed something approaching him. It was Gold Hunine's clone, whom one of the snakes was about to slam into him, but he managed to dodge, causing the clone to be dragged across the cave wall. The clone screamed in pain and once again said that it would kill Sunraku. Sunraku was shocked to discover that the snake was using the clone like a hammer, so he asked how insane Gold Hunine was, since the clone was still hers and was a part of her. Gold Hunine asked how long Sunraku intended to keep playing around because she is getting very unhappy about the situation. She even raised her hand and said that she no longer wanted to see Sunraku's face. It turned out that she had prepared several blades to attack him with, and after saying that he disgusted her, she threw them. One of her snakes attacked at the same time, but Sunraku managed to evade it. By the time he noticed the blades Gold Hunine had thrown, it was already too late because one of them was close to him. He managed to raise his left arm to shield himself, and one of the blades became lodged in it. It did not hurt him very much, and he was surprised that it was not an instant kill. Even so, he immediately checked how much damage it had dealt to him, and when he saw that it had only inflicted 59 damage, he said that he was fine. One quick heal would allow him to return to the fight, and as he said that, he threw the blade back at Gold Hunine. The Colossus saw it and effortlessly caught it. She told Sunraku that the battle was over, while he wondered whether it would be fine to simply let himself get hit. However, at that moment, cracks began spreading from the wound caused by Gold Hunine's blade. That surprised him because his arm was already going numb. He asked whether it was petrification and realized that he could no longer take a hit because he could not even make a fist with that arm. He also noticed that the wound was expanding, and he thought that it might have been Gold Hunine's poison curse. However, the cracks stopped spreading when they reached Sunraku's tattoos, and Gold Hunine was surprised when she saw that. She wondered why the poison was no longer spreading and realized that it was being repelled. When she saw that Sunraku had tattoos covering his entire body, she understood what was happening. She formed another blade to throw and said that she already knew what she was going to do. Meanwhile, the clone was trying to break free from the snake, and before long, it managed to do so by cutting off his own leg. It immediately looked at Gold Hunine and tried to charge at her to attack. However, Gold Hunine sensed it, and with a single raise of her hand, she released a massive blade that sliced the clone's body in two. At the same time, she mockingly asked the clone whether that was enough to kill it. Sunraku laughed when he saw that, and told Gold Hunine to calm down because she had become far too worked up over him flicking her on the head. However, he told himself that the situation was not looking good. He had been so desperate to escape that Gold Hunine and her snakes had chased him all the way toward the front lines. However, if he stopped, he would die? If he continued running, he would lead Gold Hunine and her snakes directly to where his companions were fighting. The scene then shifted to the battlefield, where C-Crew was fighting a snake. He prepared himself to face the charging snake, and Akane was also there. She sliced the snake apart before it could reach C-Crew, who watched it collapse in front of him. He called it a fine stroke of luck and used bamboo lightning on the hole behind him. After that, he called the carpenters, and they arrived carrying something to cover the hole. They immediately got to work by throwing it over the opening, successfully covering it. They even patted it to tighten and reinforce it, while Akane was delighted that there was now one fewer hole. C-Crew said that it was only a temporary cover, but it would be enough for the time being. Akane then proudly showed off the weapon she had obtained from the arena. She said that it packs a punch, but she had never used a giant sickle before, and it was somewhat difficult to handle. Elsewhere, one of the bunnies had already become infected by Gold Hunine's poison curse. In an instant, a snake suddenly attacked him and was about to devour him. Fortunately, Edward entered the scene and killed the snake, before asking the infected bunny what was wrong with him. He told him that if he did not want to die, he needed to keep moving. However, Edward was surprised when he looked at the bunny, and he realized that he was infected. He also saw that several other bunnies had already been affected by the poison, which irritated him because the symptoms were worsening just as they had finally dealt with the holes. He added that they still had a chance to end everything as long as they defeated the remaining snakes. C-Crew said that he fears that them alone cannot provide full backup for everyone. At the same time, Emil used Magic Edge on one of the enemies, after which two snakes began chasing her, frightening her. Edward said that their father had told him not to waste people's lives, which surprised C-Crew. Edward then said to hell with what their father had told him, and he ordered the other bunnies to retreat because he would fight all the snakes at once. The snakes charged at him after that, and while he attacked them, he said that Sunraku was stepping up and risking his life to fight the clone. He said that they would become the laughingstock of the world if they simply ran away screaming. Emil said that she could not allow Edward to fight the snakes by himself, while Akane added that they would help as well. When Akane saw a bunny lying face down on the floor, she became curious and examined him closely. She and C-Crew then realized that the poison that had entered the bunny's body was already disappearing. The same thing was happening to the other bunnies, and Edward asked what it meant. He also asked whether Sunraku had truly managed to defeat the clone, and said that it was not too shabby. He then told the other bunnies not to let Sunraku have all the fun by himself. It was time for them to step up and reveal their Vorpal souls. Back with Sunraku, he told himself to remain calm. He thought there was a larger area ahead of the front lines where it would be easier to fight. He was about to say what would happen if he managed to circle around to that area, but then he saw Edward, which greatly surprised him. He realized that he had gone much too far and said that he should apologize first. It appeared that he had already returned to the front lines and had somewhat brought Gold Hunine with him. Edward was surprised to hear that, but he was even more shocked when he saw Gold Hunine with his own eyes. At that moment, she was forming yet another blade, and she asked whether Sunraku would dodge it or run away. She warned him that if he ran, the blade would strike the other piece of garbage, which happened to be Edward. Sunraku found himself in a difficult situation because, on one hand, he could save himself, but Edward would be placed in danger in exchange, and vice versa if he chose the other option. He did not know what to do because he had many ways to avoid Gold Hunine's attack, but the problem was Edward. Sunraku became irritated and said that since he was the one who had brought Gold Hunine there, he would take responsibility for her attack. As the blade Gold Hunine had thrown drew closer to Sunraku, the Colossus seemed alarmed because someone struck her projectile. It was none other than Saiger Zero, and because she had struck Gold Hunine's projectile, it missed Sunraku and flew past him. The blade became embedded in the cave wall, and C-Crew asked who had arrived. When Sunraku landed, he was surprised by Saiger Zero's arrival and nearly called her by that name. But he stopped himself and simply called her Rei instead. He asked what she was doing in Rabbituza and how she had gotten there. At the same time, Edward wondered what was happening. One of the bunnies told him to listen, and it was his younger sister, Exis. She said that they had just recruited an adventurer who was overflowing with Vorpal soul, and that adventurer was Saiger Zero. Meanwhile, Gold Hunine silently watched them, while a mole approached Exis, and Akane was delighted that Saiger Zero had finally reached Rabbituza. Edward appeared surprised that Saiger Zero was an adventurer overflowing with Vorpal soul. She said that Exis had already given her a general outline of the situation, and that she was there to help them defeat Gold Hunine's snakes and Gold Hunine herself. Sunraku was delighted by that, and said that Rei was the best helper ever, which made her extremely happy. After that, Sunraku asked whether the bunny accompanying Rei was named Exis and told her that she had brought Rei there at exactly the right time. Exis was completely shocked to learn that Sunraku was the bird guy, and she told Warthog to look at him, leaving Sunraku confused about what Exis was referring to. As for Rei, she was thrilled that she had finally received an invitation to Rabbituza and would now be able to speak with Hizatomi more often. On top of that, they would be able to spend more time playing together. She said that she would have liked to gender swap, but she would have needed to change her armor, and that was not possible. Sunraku wondered what Rei was thinking at that moment, while Gold Hinine was also deep in thought. She then ordered her snakes to kill those who were there. They were the wolf, Sunraku, the dragon, Akane, and the presence she found most displeasing, Edward. She gave that order to her loving children, the enormous snakes. Rei, Sunraku, and Edward prepared to fight at that moment, while Akane asked whether the man commanding the snakes was Gold Hinine the Inexhaustible because Gold Hinine looked like a little girl to her. However, she said that she felt extremely intimidated at that moment, while Edward realized that the Gold Hinine standing before them was not a clone, but the real one. He asked Sunraku what she was like to fight, and Sunraku replied that he would not say he had actually fought Gold Hinine because he had only been running away from her enormous snakes. He said that he could not say much until he had a proper chance to fight Gold Hinine herself, but she had already managed to infect his arm with poison. Edward was shocked when he saw it, and asked whether it truly was Gold Hinine's poison. Sunraku then said that he had already defeated 2 colossi, and at that moment, he healed the wound Gold Hinine had inflicted on him, which she saw happen. Sunraku added that he always fought to win. He even appeared surprised when the cracks on his arm simply disappeared, and he realized that contusion could apparently neutralize things of that level for him. Edward said that was good and that, in that case, there was only one thing they needed to do. He called out to all their allies and told them that their friend Sunraku would fight Gold Hinine. Meanwhile, they would fight the snakes accompanying her so that they could not distract Sunraku. He said that they were finished defending and ordered them to fight as though their lives depended on it. They had been fighting the snakes for far too long, and it was time to put an end to them for good. As he said that, he began charging toward them. The snakes also charged and dove directly toward the ground where the bunnies were positioned, while Rei, Sea-Crew, and Akane leaped toward the snakes. Down below, Edward fought with 2 bunnies behind him. Sunraku then emerged from the smoke created by the battle, and Gold Hinine told him to die as the snake she was riding prepared to bite him. Sunraku immediately leaped upward along the snake's body until he reached Gold Hinine. The two stared at each other's eyes deeply, and Gold Hinine said that she truly hated Sunraku while forming another projectile to throw at him. Sunraku replied that he would not let Gold Hinine whine forever as he drew his Gilta Brill. Gold Hinine attacked using the weapon she had created, and Sunraku met it with the Gilta Brill while saying that he would teach a spoiled brat like Gold Hinine a lesson. After that, the scene shifted to the Rabituza Palace, where Visash was smoking from a carrot pipe. He seemed to be watching something while his eyes were closed, and when he opened them, he realized what Gold Hinine's scheme was. Back in the battle, Edward slashed one of the snakes across the cheek, causing it to crash onto the ground. Edward said that he had never expected to fight Gold Hinine that soon. He added that Sunraku was making the battle even more exciting for him, then told the bunnies to stand firm and show what's in them all. Sea-Crew agreed, but before that, they first needed to deal with the enormous snakes. At that moment, Akane used Ryu Ibuki, a fire-breathing skill. At the same time, Rei was fighting one of the snakes, which struck her with tremendous force and sent her flying. After landing, she warned her companions to be careful. She said that all the giant snakes were doing was circling around and ramming into them, but they were proving to be a challenge. On another side of the battle, Emul used magic chain on one of the snakes, giving several bunnies an opportunity to attack it. One of them stabbed the snake's head, while another attacked a different part of its body. Emul was extremely proud of what she had accomplished, while her sister, Exis, was delighted for her. She even told her that Sunraku had been helping her polish her moves, which impressed Exis. Emul added that with the kind of Vorpal soul Sunraku possessed, she was certain that he would lead them to victory. At that moment, one of Gold Hinine's snakes tried to devour Sunraku again, but he managed to evade it by using Flitfoot. Gold Hinine watched it happen, while Sunraku looked back at her and saw the ferocity in her eyes. Sunraku said that, under those circumstances, he might not be able to defeat Gold Hinine. He knew that she was a unique monster and one of the 7 colossi. However, when he fought Weathermon and Katarnid, both encounters had been part of bonus unique scenarios. The scenario he was currently undertaking, the defense of Rabbituza, was only a regular unique scenario and not a bonus one. Because of that, he asked himself why Gold Hunine the Inexhaustible had appeared at that moment and why a battle against a Colossus had suddenly begun in such a way. The only time he had fought a unique monster outside a bonus situation was during his battle against Lycagon. However, when he defeated it, it turned out to have been nothing more than a shadow, and it did not count as him defeating the real one. In fact, defeating the shadow had unlocked a bonus scenario. At that moment, he felt a tingling sensation in the arm Gold Hunine had struck, and she asked whether that arm was unable to heal itself completely. Sunraku replied that Gold Hunine should not worry about him. He said that having one numb arm only made the battle against a child like her more enjoyable. At the same time, Sunraku told himself that he truly believed a bonus unique scenario was necessary to defeat a unique monster, which meant that the current scenario was one in which he was supposed to lose. He said that, if that was the case, there was not much he could do, then wondered whether that was what the developers wanted him to think. At the same time, he activated his Exceed Charge skill, which released an extremely bright light. It caught Gold Hunine's attention and made her stare with her mouth open in surprise, while Aidward was also shocked. Sunraku then thanked one of Gold Hunine's snakes for moving into the perfect position for him. He struck it directly in the jaw with Reject, and the recoil sent him flying. He was launched toward Gold Hunine and said that if she would not give him a bonus unique scenario, then all he needed to do was trigger one right then and there. He even drew his Moonblades and said that if he did not know the exact conditions required to trigger Gold Hunine's bonus unique scenario, such as surviving for a set amount of time, defeating the giant snakes, or dealing a certain amount of damage to Gold Hunine, then the solution was simple. He would simply try to fulfill as many conditions as he could think of. As he said that, he tried to slash Gold Hunine with his Moonblades, but she managed to evade him by leaping away. She landed on the ground near Akane, which surprised her. Sunraku was also surprised that Gold Hunine had climbed down from her snake and told her that she could not continue looking down on them forever. At the same time, the snake Sunraku had hit slammed into the cave wall. Aidward then expressed his delight, because Sunraku was truly giving Gold Hunine a difficult time. Gold Hunine said that her intense loathing had already gone beyond its limit and created several projectiles, while Akane asked whether she truly was one of the 7 colossi. That caught Gold Hunine's attention, and she hurled her projectiles toward Akane, leaving her shocked and frozen in place. Fortunately, Sea Crew used bamboo lightning, while Akane could only close her eyes. When she opened them, she saw that Sea Crew's bamboo lightning had saved her, which surprised her. He even told her to pull back, and Aidward noticed something that made him worried. He warned Sea Crew to evade it, but he was already too late because a snake had struck both Sea Crew and Akane. The two of them were sent flying and slammed violently into the wall. Akane immediately became concerned about Sea Crew, while Sunraku approached them and asked whether they were all right. However, Gold Hunine threw her projectiles at him, forcing Sunraku to leap away. Rei then tried to attack Gold Hunine from behind, and even thought that she had finally caught her off guard. Unfortunately, one of Gold Hunine's snakes suddenly appeared out of nowhere, attacked her, and pinned her against the ground. Sunraku became worried about Rei, and told her not to concern herself with Gold Hunine for the moment. He said that they should focus on the giant snakes first. He had Levin Hazard and intended to use it to blow Gold Hunine away with a single attack, but before he could activate it, the hand he needed to trigger the skill was severed, devoured by one of the snakes. Sunraku stared at his eaten hand, and he began to fall. Aidward saw what had happened and appeared worried, while Gold Hunine said that it was time to end the battle and created a massive projectile. Aidward became alarmed when he saw it, and after seeing the condition of his companions, he cursed. At that moment, Gold Hunine noticed something, and she looked toward Rei. She told Rei that she also bore a detestable scent, but it was still better than those disgusting rabbits. At the same time, Aidward attacked her, but she blocked him using her projectile. Aidward said that he would no longer show her any mercy, and he would gladly throw away his life if it meant that he could kill Gold Hunine. He even told her to prepare to die because the battle was already over. Gold Hunine called him a truly irritating presence. She forced him to the ground with her projectile, causing Edward to drop his sword, the Tanryu, and slam hard against the floor. It even bounced several times, and Sunraku then arrived. He only had 5 HP remaining, and he told Edward to get away from Gold Hunine and leave. He remembered what Pencil Gon, who was Pencil Knight in that game, had told him, which was that when an NPC died, they would never come back to life. If that happened, he could fail that scenario, so he would no longer continue trying to unlock any bonus unique scenario. Unfortunately, he was not in any decent fighting condition at that moment either. Gold Hunine then said that she was not there to talk as she prepared to throw a sharp projectile at Edward. Edward saw it, and Sunraku immediately moved. He said to let him risk his life as he used a shield. He added that he would not allow Gold Hunine to kill Edward, while the Colossus called him a fool. At that moment, Rei grabbed Gold Hunine's leg, which seemed to irritate her, but there was nothing she could do when Rei pulled it. Gold Hunine fell flat on the ground, along with her projectile. The giant snakes were shocked by what Rei had done, while Sunraku praised her. However, Gold Hunine spoke in a voice filled with rage and said that she would kill Rei. Sunraku became alarmed when he heard that and told Rei to run. Countless bladed projectiles then struck the area where Rei had been standing, but she managed to leap away, while Sunraku escaped carrying Edward. Gold Hunine became surrounded by smoke because of what she had done, while Sunraku told Edward that Rei was the one he should thank for surviving Gold Hunine. Because of that, he needed to make sure to thank her later. After that, Sunraku ordered a mole to bring Edward back to Rabbituza alive, and for Akitsu Akane to bring Sea Crew with her as well. Edward was shocked when he heard that, and said that he was still fine, while a mole asked what Sunraku was going to do. He replied that he would tie Gold Hunine and her snakes down there. By that time, Gold Hunine had already stood up, while Sunraku added that he knew the NPCs would not understand, but it made more sense to let the players sacrifice their lives for the cause. Rei then said that she would stay with Sunraku, and he thanked her when he heard that. He also apologized for making Rei back him up in a losing battle. Edward did not like that Sunraku was sending him home and felt as though he had been unable to contribute anything, while a mole told him that they needed to leave. At the same time, Sunraku challenged Gold Hunine to charge at him and even called her a reptilian. He said that he would show her his heel flick onslaught finisher next time, and she seemed amused by that. She then called out to Saberthea, who immediately charged at Sunraku. Sunraku was shocked, while a mole and Edward watched with fear and concern. A logo then suddenly appeared, and Visash entered the scene, blocking Saberthea's attack. Emol, Edward, Akane, and Sunraku were all completely shocked when they saw him. Gold Hunine also seemed concerned, but only slightly. Visash met one of Saberthea's fangs with his stick, and with his incredible strength, he managed to break it. It could then be seen that the logo that had appeared came from his stick, while Saberthea screamed in pain. He even hissed, and appeared shocked after recognizing Visash. Visash told him to leave, and confronted him directly. However, Saberthea withdrew, and returned behind Gold Hunine, who looked absolutely furious. Meanwhile, Sunraku was about to say something to Visash, but Visash spoke first, called out to him, and said that he might have been referring to a rule that applied to humans, but they still could not waste their lives like that. Edward could not believe that he had heard those words from their father again, while Visash said that he could see that Edward had been beaten up once more. He then noticed something that surprised him. It was the Tanryu lying on the ground, which he picked up. At the same time, he asked Gold Hunine whether she wanted to explain what was happening. He said that if she was going to appear there, then he would as well, and asked whether she understood that. Sunraku could not process Visash's arrival and asked whether they had already unlocked the next event. He even wondered whether he and Visash were about to fight together as allies, which excited him, and asked whether that was the bonus scenario. Meanwhile, Gold Hunine asked whether Visash had left Rabbituza wide open just to come to the rescue, and said that he seemed rather attached to the people there. Visash said that he would not allow people to die before they had reached their full potential, and all his children were guarding the rear lines near Rabbituza, so Gold Hunine would not be able to attack it. Gold Hunine said that she could not make any promises. For now and in the future, as long as she remained herself, she could only be herself. Sunraku fell into thought when he heard that, while Visash told Gold Hunine that they had allowed their companions to fight, and that was the result. He said that it was not right for her to suddenly enter the scene, so Gold Hunine needed to leave because that place was no longer her territory. Sunraka thought about what the two were discussing and could no longer understand the story. At the same time, Ray began wondering what he was doing. Following that, Gold Hunine agreed to leave and said that she had no attachment to a hole she had dug herself. It's all a big pain, so she would let it pass for that day. She then climbed onto one of her snakes and told Visash to remember that she knew whom he was hiding and that one day, she would kill that person along with everyone close to Visash. After saying that, she threw something at Sunraku, which surprised him and told him not to expect the same mercy next time. Sunraku called Gold Hunine a bastard and realized that he had let his guard down. He even told her to prepare herself as well, because he would do far more than flick her next time. Gold Hunine laughed at that moment, before leaving with all her snakes. Akane asked whether they were really leaving, while Amol said that it seemed talking things out with Gold Hunine had worked. Edward said that no one knew what would have happened to them if Visash had not appeared. On top of that, he did not think thanking them would ever be enough. Meanwhile, Sunraku was furious with Gold Hunine because she had insulted him while leaving. Visash said that it looked like Sunraku had gained a new fan, while Sunraku replied that Gold Hunine had not even shaken his hand, and more of took it. He then asked whether magic could be used to repair destroyed body parts, and Ray replied that there were several methods. She was about to explain the easiest one, but Visash answered first. He said that Sunraku only needed to die, and everything would be fine. He added that this was one major difference between Sunraku and them, which confused Sunraku. He did not understand what Visash meant, while Visash added that he would help him. He used the ease pain skill and told Sunraku that he could return to Rabituza for now as he decapitated him. That shocked Akane and Ray. Sunraku could not understand what just happened, and the last thing he saw was Visash telling him to return to Rabituza first. After that, he respawned inside the Rabituza room. He hurriedly got back up, still unable to accept what had happened, and said that Visash could not flip out like that without even warning him first. He still could not understand why Visash had cut off his head and said that he could no longer keep up with what was happening. His hand had returned, but what had happened to Visash saying that they could not waste their lives when he killed him after saying it? He was also surprised that he had not received a penalty despite dying. That made him think that it had not been an ordinary death, and he remembered Visash saying ease pain. He wondered whether it was a skill. However, he did not pay much attention to it, and instead thought about what Visash had said before decapitating him, which was that he only needed to die and everything would be fine. According to Visash, that was the difference between Sunraku and them. He knew that the first part referred to respawning. Shangri-La Frontier was a game, so of course he could come back to life. But didn't they only know that because they were players? If so, how could an NPC understand it? With the game's AI being so advanced, he sometimes wondered what the NPCs thought whenever the players did strange things. He then wondered whether the Visash had referred to meant more than just the Vorpal bunnies, and whether he meant NPCs in general. He also questioned whether the players were treated as a different species or something similar. Emol then asked why he was still questioning that at this point, which surprised him. Emol said that she had known Sunraku would wake up there, and he asked whether she also knew about respawning. Emol was confused when she heard that and replied that, of course, she did. She explained that adventurers were blessed by the divines, so whenever they died, they returned to the last place where they had rested, and everyone knew that. Sunraku was shocked to hear about adventurers being blessed by the divines, and while squeezing Emol's cheeks, he told her that she needed to call back to something like that during an actual event. After that, Emol explained everything to Sunraku, and this was the summary of what she told him. First, she explained that adventurers who received blessings from those of the era of divinity were capable of becoming stronger much faster than other groups, which Sunraku believed referred to leveling up. When Emol said that even if adventurers died, they simply returned to the place where they had last rested, fully recovered, and able to move again, Sunraku realized that she was referring to respawning. Emol added that it varied from person to person, but some adventurers slept for several weeks, while others only took short breaks, which Sunraku understood as logging in and logging out. There was also the matter of adventurers retiring from the game because they would sometimes disappear without warning, and Sunraku realized that this was how NPCs perceive player-controlled adventurers. He said that their position as players was apparently incorporated into the game's lore, and that there was probably a reason why the developers had gone through the trouble of doing that. Regarding the blessing of the divines that Amul had mentioned, Sunraku wondered whether it was connected to the era of divinity civilization in the second plan. At that moment, Amul called out to him and asked how much longer he intended to sit there thinking. She said that a lot were there to see him, so they needed to leave. Sunraku wondered why Amul was in such a hurry and whom she was referring to. He was surprised when he saw who was standing outside the door. It was Blight, who said that it was about time Sunraku showed up. All the bunny soldiers were with her, and Sunraku wondered why they were there. Edward said that they did not want Sunraku to leave without giving him a proper send-off. He was certain that it was their way of expressing their gratitude. Now that Gold Hunine had been defeated and the poison was gone, the soldiers would finally be able to live normally again. Sunraku then understood why they were there, but they did not know that Gold Hunine herself had defeated her clone. Edward said that, as for the original Gold Hunine, they would never have been able to push the battle line that far without the adventurers' help, and he was addressing Akane and Rei. He added that, on behalf of all Rabituza, he thanked them, then extended his hand to Sunraku for a handshake. As Sunraku shook Edward's hand, he said that he had only done what he set out to do. It was then revealed that he had acquired the title Defender of Rabituza and had also completed the Rabituza defensive unique scenario, and he added that he was extremely happy. After that, Edward said that they would be returning to work. They still needed to strengthen the defenses in the areas they had taken. Akane was surprised that they would not be taking a break, while Sunraku said that he was certain running a country was not easy. He also realized that, in the end, all they had accomplished was completing a defense mission. He had even thought that they would unlock a bonus unique scenario in which they would defeat Gold Hunine, but he admitted that he could not always be right. After that, Akane said that she would be leaving soon, so C-Crew asked whether she was already going to rest. Sunraku told her that was fine, and Rei also said goodbye, bowing to Sunraku and explaining that they still had something to do that night. Sunraku waved to her and said that Rei had been a tremendous help to him. As Rei was leaving, she asked Exis how she could return to the city, and Exis replied that she would take care of it and that Rei could ride with them whenever she wanted. At the same time, Sunraku was looking at something in his game menu, which was an item in his inventory. He was delighted that he still had it, the composite crystal of Gold Hunine's cursed poison, which he called a crystal of pure poison. Blight was shocked when she saw it and could not believe that Sunraku had managed to obtain one. At that moment, Sunraku noticed something in his game menu and began thinking. He then asked Blight whether she knew where Visash was, which seemed to surprise her. She said that Visash had not stopped by her workshop, so he was probably at the palace. She even asked whether Sunraku wanted to test the poison he was carrying. Sunraku was confused when he heard that and said yes, but he also wanted to ask Visash about several other things. Blight asked what those things were, and Sunraku replied that he would explain everything once they found Visash. After that, they went to the Rabituza Palace, but Visash was not in his throne room. Sunraku was surprised to see that he was not there, while Blight said that her father had not been in her workshop, so she had assumed that he was there. Emil asked whether he had gone outside, and one of the bunnies then said something to Blight. She was shocked by what he told her and even asked whether it was really all right. Sunraku wondered what they were discussing, and Blight replied that her father appeared to be in the workshop. On top of that, he wanted to see Sunraku regarding the poison he had obtained, which delighted Sunraku. He immediately said that they should go there, but Blight stopped him and explained that she was not referring to the usual workshop. Sunraku was confused by that, and Blight explained that they actually had another workshop in Rabituza. It was located inside the palace, and Visash was the only one who used it. It was his personal workshop, and its interior was enormous. Sunraku was amazed to learn that this was where Visash worked his magic, and Blight was equally impressed, saying that she was rarely allowed to enter the place. Sunraku said that he had no idea Rabituza had a forge like that. At that moment, Visash arrived and said that it was nice to see Sunraku again. Sun Raku thanked him for helping earlier, while he asked whether Sun Raku being there meant that he had obtained the poison. Sun Raku replied that he had, and said that it was thanks to Vaisash's new weapon. He began looking for it in his inventory, but before taking it out, he said that there was something he wanted to discuss. He pulled out a weapon and explained that he had obtained it while running away from Gold Hunine and her snakes. As he said that its name was the Decayed Ariad Bear, Vaisash suddenly took it from his hand, surprising him. Vaisash called the spear-like weapon Duldana, which confused both Sun Raku and Bilak. Vaisash confirmed whether Sun Raku had truly obtained it while running away from the snakes, then asked him to explain in greater detail exactly what had happened when he acquired Duldana. At that moment, Sun Raku advanced into the bonus unique scenario, Vorpal Epic. Sun Raku appeared stunned by what Vaisash had asked him to do and said that there was not much to tell about it. He had simply seen that sword while escaping from Gold Hunine and her snakes. After that, the scene shifted back to the past as Sun Raku told his story. It was the exact moment when he realized that if he continued running, he would lead Gold Hunine and her snakes directly to where his allies were. Gold Hunine even threw a blade at him, but he saw it coming and managed to evade it. He knew that the attack had been powerful enough to slice the clone in two, and it would vaporize him with a single hit. Because of that, he wondered what he was supposed to do and whether there was anything he could use to counter her. It seemed that he would need to use Levin Hazard to quickly put some distance between himself and Gold Hunine. However, before he could activate it, he noticed something. He saw an object embedded in one of the snakes, and it was the Decayed Ariad Bear. He wondered what it was and could hardly believe that something was lodged inside the snake. He was even surprised to realize that it was a sword, and he then understood what was happening and what that object was. Sun Raku said that the item had probably been created solely to move that stupid event along. He thought that if he took it, it might multiply his stats by several million times or something similar, giving him a fighting chance against Gold Hunine and her snakes. At that moment, several snakes charged at him simultaneously, and he added that he would still need an extremely convenient lucky break. Otherwise, he would not be able to conquer that seemingly endless cavalcade of monsters. Because of that, he activated Levin Hazard and combined it with Moment Sight. Using those two skills, he rapidly leaped across the bodies of Gold Hunine's snakes, while saying that it had to work. At the same time, Gold Hunine wondered why Sun Raku was running back toward her. In the next second, Sun Raku managed to reach the sword he had seen, and said that with Levin Hazard and Moment Sight, he could obtain it. He grabbed the sword and held onto it tightly while the snake's body thrashed around. He noticed that the sword was stuck inside the snake's body, so he sarcastically asked whether it had fused with the scales or something. If that was the case, he would simply dig it out from underneath, and he used another one of his swords to do so. At the same time, one of the snakes attacked him, forcing him to dig out the embedded sword even faster. He managed to remove it before the snake could attack him, then leaped away while saying that the sword was larger than he had expected. He had hoped that it would help him, but when he checked its stats, all it said was that it was a large, rusted sword. It had become so badly corroded that it could no longer function as a weapon. Sun Raku could not accept what he was seeing, and became irritated because the sword was completely useless to him. Back in the present, Sun Raku said that this was how he had obtained the sword. He had taken an enormous risk to acquire that mysterious weapon. He even thought that there must have been a purpose behind obtaining it, which was why he was asking Vaisash, since he knew that he had known Gold Hunine for a long time. Vaisash appeared intrigued that Sun Raku had discovered the Decayed Ariad Bear on the back of one of the snakes. Based on his reaction, Sun Raku believed that his suspicion had been correct. He also mentioned that he had heard Vaisash say the word Duldana earlier and asked whether he was familiar with the sword. Vaisash replied that, just as Sun Raku had said, the sword was nothing more than a pile of rust. However, a very long time ago, that sword had belonged to a dear friend of theirs. He said that it had not originally been a sword, and that some fool had created it by breaking off the tip of a gigantic spear. Sun Raku could not believe what he had heard because the tip alone was already enormous, so he wondered how large the rest of the spear must have been. Vaisash added that the sword was not from the era of divinity and was not even from that world, but someone had once wielded it in battle. He said that they called such objects gratefuls, weapons that had once belonged to heroes of the past. Sunraku was confused by what those weapons were called and said that it was all way over his head. However, it was probably another piece of information he could use to bait the library clan. Because of the expression on his face, Emul said that he was thinking about something devious. Meanwhile, Visash praised him for finding the decayed Ariad bear and said that he had assumed it had been lost long ago. Sunraku then asked whether it was a key item for an upcoming event or something similar. At the same time, he said that Visash could keep it if he wanted, but before he could finish speaking, Visash told him that it was very thoughtful of him. However, Visash said that he had no intention of keeping the sword and believed that fate had brought it to them. It only needed a little repair, and he thought that it could still be useful, so Sunraku should keep it. Sunraku agreed, but said that his stats were not suited for heavy blades like that one. After that, Visash said that they should stop dwelling on the past and take a look at the curse Sunraku had brought for him. Sunraku was surprised, but when he realized what Visash was referring to, he took out the composite crystal of Gold Hunine's cursed poison and asked whether that was what he meant. He said that he had managed to harvest it in crystal form for Visash, but asked how it was supposed to be used. He had even heard that it could overwrite contusion. He was about to say more, but Visash said that when a blacksmith like him was given the proper materials, there was only one thing he could make. Sunraku wondered what it was, while Bilak answered that it was a weapon and said that she had never seen or heard of anything like it before. Emul said that she could not wait to see what her father would create with it, while Sunraku said that, of course, he had hoped Visash would make something for him. However, he had something he needed to do afterward, so he asked whether he could return later to collect the result. Visash told him not to worry because they would finish it quickly. Sunraku would not even have enough time to catch his breath. Elsewhere, Kyogoku was killing several players, while Katsuo said that, now that he thought about it, this would be his first time participating in PvP and SLF. Because of that, the battle would make a good story for him. Pencilgon said that the time had finally come, and that it was time to begin the battle between Wolfgang and Schwarzwolf. After that, the scene shifted to an enormous arena, where the entire Schwarzwolf clan had already gathered. Rebellious was becoming irritated because Wolfgang was late. 15 minutes had already passed since the scheduled meeting time, and he asked what they were doing. He even said they had better not tell him that they had lost their nerve and were afraid to fight. Saiger 100 told him to calm down, while one of the members asked whether Wolfgang was deliberately trying to irritate them. Rebellious did not like that and called it a worn-out old strategy, saying that Wolfgang truly was looking down on them. Meanwhile, Saiger 0 was deep in thought and appeared nervous. Saiger 100 asked her what was wrong, but she nervously replied that it was nothing. At that moment, they heard someone being scolded for arriving late, while the person being reprimanded replied that he had been testing a new weapon. It was Wolfgang, and someone asked why Sunraku looked so exhausted, but he told them to be quiet. Rebellious was surprised that they had finally arrived, while Sunraku added that he had many things he needed to do. Kyogoku then remarked that a true professional knew how to remain healthy. Pencilgon said that Sunraku would be fine. In fact, he performed better when he was just the right level of strung out. Kyogoku jokingly asked whether he was like a candle that burned brightest just before going out, while Katsuo asked whether he should beat Sunraku awake, which confused him. Katsuo became annoyed when Sunraku dodged his punch, while Sunraku explained that it was because he was not wearing any armor. Meanwhile, Pencilgon greeted the entire Schwarzwolf clan, who had been waiting there all along. Rebellious became even more irritated because Wolfgang was extremely late and had not even apologized. He asked whether that was really how they intended to treat them. Pencilgon replied that it was only a private mini-clan war, so what did it matter if they were 2 or 3 minutes late? And she called Rebellious Borellious. Rebellious said that Wolfgang was 20 minutes late and that his name was Rebellious. He told Saiger 100 that he could no longer tolerate it, so they should begin the battle and let him go first so he could beat all of them. Saiger 100 once again reminded Rebellious to calm down. However, to ensure that the battle remained completely private, they had rented the entire Colosseum and made sure that no outside players could interfere. In other words, she did not want to waste any more time and asked whether they could begin immediately. Rebellious added that a great deal of money had already been wasted during the 20 minutes they had made them wait. Katsuo was surprised to learn that the battle was private, while Pencil said that she had been the one to request it, since it would make the battle much easier to manage. Hyogoku was impressed because she can't even take screenshots, while Sunraku agreed that it was better for the battle to remain private. After all, they possessed a great deal of incredibly powerful gear. He also asked how much it had cost to rent the place, and Pencil replied that Schwarzwolf would, of course, be paying for it. Siger 100 then said that they should go over the rules one more time. The battle would be fought between 5 pre-selected members from each clan. They would enter the stage and face their respective opponents in one-on-one battles. Items that restored HP or MP were prohibited, and revival items were also forbidden. However, all skills were fair game. A participant would lose if they were killed or surrendered, and the losing clan would choose who fought next. Of course, the Colosseum had been configured so that players would not receive penalties for killing other players. Hyogoku said to herself that she did not care whether there was a penalty or not, then asked whether the battle used a basic knockout format. Siger 100 confirmed that it did and explained that the clan that ran out of members first would lose. If Wolfgang won, Schwarzwolf would accept their conditions and join their newly formed alliance. However, if Schwarzwolf won, Wolfgang would have to disclose all the information they possessed to them. Pencil then fell into thought, and Sunraku asked what was wrong. She did not answer him and merely stared at Siger 100, who appeared fully prepared to fight. Siger 100 then asked whether they had any other concerns, and Pencil replied that they did not, calling her Momo. She then corrected herself and said that she was referring to the entire Schwarzwolf clan. Rebellious found something strange and asked Wolfgang what's their deal. Sunraku wondered why Rebellious was asking that, and Rebellious explained that they were supposed to have 5 participants, but he could only see 4, so he asked where their 5th member was. Katsuo seemed irritated that Rebellious had only just noticed, while Sunraku said that they were the only ones who could make it there, although that was a lie. Pencil then asked whether Schwarzwolf was fine with them being 1 member short, while Sunraku added that he promised they would not use it as an excuse if they lost. Because of that, Rebellious should not worry, and he mockingly called him lugubrious. Katsuo was not impressed by Sunraku's attempt to provoke him, while Rebellious became extremely irritated. The 2 unidentified members reacted the same way. One of them asked whether Wolfgang was claiming that 4 members were enough, while the other said that they mocked them at every opportunity. Katsuo thought that, judging by their reactions, the 2 people on the left were diehard supporters of Rebellious. After that, he asked whether they could start beating them up already. Was all of this not merely a charade so they could beat up Rebellious? Pencil then pretended to ask what Katsuo was talking about. She knew it was a private event, but they should still enjoy themselves. She then whispered that they should follow the entire procedure while wiping the smile off Rebellious's face, calling him a bossy-ass prick. Because of that, Katsuo and Sunraku both said that Pencil frightened them. Sunraku then asked whether Katsuo was ready because he would be fighting first for their side. Hyogoku looked at him at that moment, while Katsuo replied that there was no problem. He said that he was completely ready and that Schwarzwolf would probably begin with one of their 2 random members, so he would simply beat them up. Hyogoku then warned him not to become careless, causing him to look at her. She added that Schwarzwolf had currently sent most of its strongest members to the new land, so they would not be facing the clan's top 5 members. Katsuo was probably thinking that the only real challenges there were the 2 Sigers and Rebellious. However, Schwarzwolf was still one of the top 5 clans, and the 2 people they did not recognize were still among its most skilled members. She warned that if Katsuo fought while expecting an easy battle, it might come back to bite him. Meanwhile, Rebellious recognized Katsuo as one of the people who had defeated Weathermon, but said that he had not heard anything about him since then, while Siger 100 remained silent. The man they had selected told them not to worry because he would show Wolfgang how skilled Schwarzwolf was compared to them. At that moment, Katsuo began thinking and appeared to remember something. He realized that the only people who truly knew how strong he was were Sunraku and Pencil. That made him smile, and he said that it had been a long time since he had fought a human target like that. He faced the man and asked how his name was pronounced, and whether it was Dine and Dasher. The man replied that his name was clearly written as Dine Dasher and asked whether Katsuo had never watched Brave Shadow Sword. Katsuo wondered what that was and asked whether it was the anime that had come out a few years earlier. He asked whether that was the protagonist's name and whether people still watched that anime. Dine Dasher replied that, of course, they did. He said that Dine was a lone, mysterious warrior who wielded twin blades and coursed through the darkness. He would make sure to carve that fact into Katsuo's mind so that he would never forget it. Katsuo was not intimidated by Dine wielding two blades and told him that his own weapons were his two fists. He explained that he was using a close combat build that relied on his opponent approaching him. Rebellious and Dine Dasher were surprised when they heard that, and so was Kyogoku. Katsuo added that even so, he would put Dine to sleep without taking a single step outside the tile he was standing on. Dine Dasher was level 99 extend, while Katsuo was only level 86, yet he still managed to say something like that. Rebellious could not believe what he had heard, while Kyogoku wondered why Katsuo was making things more difficult for himself. Pencilgon laughed and said that she thought Katsuo had caught some of Kyogoku's fire after being provoked by her so much, which surprised Kyogoku. Meanwhile, Dine Dasher could not believe Katsuo's challenge, who asked him once again how his name was pronounced and whether he could simply call him Dine and Dasher. Dine Dasher replied that his name was clearly Dine Dasher and that Katsuo was deliberately saying it incorrectly. Even though he already knew that, he was still falling for Katsuo's provocations. He pointed out that Katsuo had not even maxed out his own level and asked why he was imposing restrictions on himself. Katsuo smiled because his provocation was working, and Dine Dasher charged at him while asking whether he thought that battle was a joke. He began with a downward slash, which Katsuo managed to evade, although it clipped his hair. Dine Dasher followed it with a piercing attack, and Katsuo ducked to avoid it. After that, he blocked Dine Dasher's sword and struck him directly in the chest with a hook punch. As a result, Dine Dasher received 30 damage, which impressed Rebellious and another Schwarzwolf member. Dine Dasher only became angrier and activated a skill. It was Formula Drift, which allowed him to move rapidly and get behind Katsuo, surprising him. He thought that he had caught Katsuo off guard with that move, but Katsuo said that it was nothing more than a low-rent version of Sunraku. He effortlessly avoided Dine Dasher's attack, then countered by trapping his arm and grabbing him by the collar. He followed that by throwing him and combining it with a punch, which shocked his opponent. Katsuo's fist slammed into Dine Dasher's cheek, sending him flying an incredible distance. Kyogoku appeared both surprised and impressed when she saw it, while Dine Dasher crashed hard onto the ground. Katsuo said that Dine Dasher was fortunate he could not leave that tile, because if he had performed a complete follow-up combo, Dine Dasher would already have been dead. The Schwarzwolf member could not believe what Katsuo had done to him. He pointed out that Katsuo did not merely have a good melee build, but was also genuinely skilled at moving his avatar. Rebellious then said that he could now see that Katsuo was extremely confident in his gaming ability and used his fists to fully exploit his avatar's movements. Back in the battle, Dine Dasher acknowledged that Katsuo was more than just a big mouth and was amazed by his self-imposed restriction. He could not believe Katsuo had chosen to do that even after seeing that he was a twin blade user with numerous close-range skills. He even laughed at that moment and charged at Katsuo again, saying that he would regret choosing not to leave his tile. Dine Dasher leaped extremely high, which seemed to surprise Katsuo. He said that Katsuo's approach to the battle showed just how inexperienced he was in SLF. At the same time, he activated Victim Arts, and added that Katsuo would lose the battle because he had never watched Brave Shadow Sword. On top of that, Katsuo did not even know who Dine Dasher was, and he threw one of his swords at him. Katsuo realized that Dine Dasher had applied a one-handed sword skill to the weapon he had thrown, which landed directly in front of him. It became embedded in the tile Katsuo was standing on, and he wondered why Dine Dasher had merely thrown a weapon at him. He even asked what had given Dine Dasher the idea that it would hit him. Kyogoku and Pencilgon immediately realized that it was bad news, while Sunraku wondered why. At that moment, the sword Dine Dasher had thrown began glowing intensely, confusing Katsuo. It was followed by a powerful explosion, while Dine Dasher laughed and said that it served Katsuo right. Fortunately for Katsuo, it did not kill him, but it reduced his health by half. Sunraku asked what had happened because Dine Dasher's sword had suddenly exploded. Pencilgon explained that it was a skill that could be applied to short swords and knives, causing them to explode after 3 seconds. Kyogoku said that the force of the explosion depended on the weapon's rarity and that the weapon would be destroyed afterward, making it inefficient to use. However, judging by the amount of damage it had inflicted, the sword Dine Dasher sacrificed must have been somewhat valuable. Katsuo said that he could see Dine Dasher was willing to lose something as long as he secured the kill. Dine Dasher replied that he was a top-level player, so losing that kind of weapon meant nothing to him. At the same time, he activated Victim Arts again and asked Katsuo whether he was already considering running away. Katsuo replied that he did not think his pride would allow that, and besides, Dine Dasher had opened a loophole for him. Dine Dasher then told Katsuo to prepare himself for a beating and threw his second sword. Katsuo asked whether Dine Dasher was still a beginner at using Victim Arts while preparing his counter. He then mentioned several colors, including yellow, red, and light purple, then activated Spirit Fist Daybreak and punched Dine Dasher's thrown sword. The attack sent the sword flying back toward Dine Dasher, who could not believe that Katsuo had used a deflection skill against him. Katsuo added that if Dine Dasher wanted to hit him, he should make sure the sword reached him at exactly the 3rd second. As soon as Katsuo said that, the sword exploded in Dine Dasher's face, although he managed to produce a shield. Rebellious was shocked that Katsuo had deflected the sword back toward Dine Dasher, while Siger 100 noticed something that surprised her. Meanwhile, Dine Dasher told himself not to panic because he still had HP remaining, and Katsuo could not move from his position, so he would be unable to continue his combo. Next time, he would throw the weapons simultaneously from several different angles, and Katsuo would be finished. However, Katsuo was no longer standing on his tile. Dine Dasher was completely shocked when he saw that Katsuo was gone, who was already beneath him, preparing to punch him. Katsuo mentioned the colors white, blue, and green, while Dine Dasher asked why he was suddenly able to move normally. Katsuo then once again used Spirit Fist, this time activating Baby Blue Smash and striking Dine Dasher extremely hard in the stomach. Dine Dasher could do nothing against it, resulting in his death and Katsuo's victory. Pencil Gon was delighted that Wolfgang had secured its first victory, while Sunraka said that it was about time Katsuo started moving normally and asked why he had made things so difficult for himself. Kyogoku appeared completely stunned by what she had witnessed, while Rebellious was furious. When Dine Dasher returned, he called Katsuo a liar and a coward because he was not supposed to move from the tile he had been standing on. Katsuo was surprised and told Dine Dasher to take a closer look at his feet. Dine Dasher was shocked when he saw that Katsuo was standing on a broken piece of the tile. Katsuo said that, just as he had promised, he had never stepped off the tile he was standing on. He even asked if that did not apply to carrying a piece of the tile wherever he went. Dine Dasher could not believe what he had heard, and argued that it was a lame-ass excuse that Katsuo should have clarified beforehand. Katsuo then said that, while he was there, he had some advice for Dine Dasher. He had lost their battle because he had been blindly honest enough to trust a verbal promise that was not part of the official rules. The moment Dine Dasher assumed that he would obey a restriction that carried no penalty if broken, he had demonstrated how unsuited he was for battle. Katsuo said that Dine Dasher was the one who had treated the fight like a joke, and he added that only amateurs bragged about their high levels and weapon collections. Katsuo then crushed the piece of tile with one hand, and said that he had not come there to play with someone who thought he would be impressed by childish games, because his job there was to win. After that, Rebellious scolded Dine Dasher and asked what he thought he was doing. His battle against Katsuo, who was only level 86 and had terrible equipment, had ended far too quickly. Dine Dasher said that he knew that, but he was willing to bet that Katsuo was a veteran of PvP combat, and he had assumed that Wolfgang was only skilled at hunting monsters. Rebellious then told himself that he had expected Kyogoku to fight for Wolfgang, but Katsuo clearly could not be underestimated either. After that, he said that they still had a way to defeat Katsuo, and their female member stepped forward, saying that she was their one-on-one specialist. She said that she had a strategy best suited for opponents who were genuine menaces. Meanwhile, Kyogoku appeared to be in shock, so Pencil Gon asked her what was wrong. She replied that she had not expected Katsuo to be so skilled. Sunraka did not seem to agree that Katsuo had shown anything impressive because, as far as he was concerned, Katsuo was still only playing around. Kyogoku asked why Sunraku was so testy at that moment. Pencil Gon answered that Sunraku was merely irritated because he might not get a chance to fight in that battle. After that, Sunraku asked Katsuo why he had not brought out that thing from the very beginning and asked him to show him a little more flash. Katsuo was confused for a moment, but he quickly realized what Sunraku was referring to. Meanwhile, Kyogoku wondered what Sunraku meant by that thing, and Rebellious was equally confused. Pencilgon said that Katsuo had probably gotten carried away while testing it, so it only had a little battery power left. Sunraku was shocked and asked whether Katsuo was stupid. It needed to be charged because they were going to use it in that battle. Katsuo appeared irritated by Sunraku's nagging, and he said that he could not use the thing they were discussing without practicing with it first. Besides, it was not out of gas or anything like that. The next Schwarzwolf member who was about to fight was confused when she heard that, and so was Rebellious. Back with the Wolfgang clan, Sunraku said that if they lost because of that, he would make sure Katsuo never forgot it. Katsuo told him to be quiet and said that they should begin the fight, although he did not know the name of his next opponent. She introduced herself as Asagiri and said that her main weapon was the katana she was carrying, which was named Kaiman Hammon. Because of that, Katsuo realized that Asagiri had 1% of gear, and he charged at her. He even said that he believed she was extremely strong, and Asagiri replied that she obviously was. She added that when someone had a good finishing move, they needed to use it immediately, then attacked Katsuo with Majin-style Gyoten Hijin. Katsuo became alarmed when he saw it, and wondered whether it was a slashing strike or a projectile. He saw how fast it was, but it was not so fast that he could not evade it. However, while he was dodging, he noticed something that surprised him. Asagiri had launched another attack from above, and he could not believe it when the strike hit him directly in the chest. He was sent flying an incredible distance, although he still managed to land on his feet. He was shocked by the attack, which had dealt 78 damage to him. He even asked whether Asagiri had unleashed 2 consecutive slashing strikes. She replied that she could only use that skill while wielding Kyomen Hammon and that it was called Gyoten Hijin. It consumed her weapon's durability, but after the first slash, she could immediately launch a second one without any waiting time. If it connected, the knockback was powerful enough to send large monsters flying, and it could not be parried. After hearing that, Katsuo thought that he could handle the skill, but the second slash had been aimed and released with the knowledge of where his evasion would take him. He told Asagiri that she seemed confident in her PvP skills, while Asagiri told him that he had better be prudent with his evasion skills, or he would not even be able to come near her. Kyogoku said that she had assumed Schwarzwolf was mostly a story-focused clan, but apparently they also had highly skilled PvP players. According to Pencilgon, judging by how confidently Asagiri was boasting, she was certain that Asagiri had a method for dealing with close combat fighters. Sunraku then sarcastically thanked them for their color commentary, and he said that the battle was moving so slowly that he was becoming sleepy. Back in the battle, Asagiri brought up what Katsuo had said earlier. She had heard him say that boasting about high-level stats and weapon loadouts was a sign of inexperience. However, she said that genuine talent was still required to obtain those things and asked whether her point was clear. Katsuo replied that this was indeed true in a game and that he would not deny it. Because of that, he thought it was time to show her a little of his genuine talent, and he activated the non-standard specialized armor, Banbu, along with the non-standard tactical tiger, Byakko. Schwarzwolf, Wolfgang, and especially Asagiri were shocked when they saw them. Byakko let out a loud roar afterward, leaving Rebellious staring with his mouth open, while Kyogoku asked what that gear and robot were. At the same time, Katsuo told Byakko that it was time for them to move, and Byakko replied that he understood. They then charged at Asagiri from opposite sides, which alarmed her. Rebellious could not accept Katsuo's use of that equipment and called him a cheater because the battle had become 2 against 1. Pencilgon argued that the rules only prohibited healing items. They had obtained the tactical beast through their genuine talent, so she asked whether using it was actually a violation. Rebellious had no answer, while Asagiri said that her Gyoten Hijin could not fight 2 opponents simultaneously. In that case, she would simply use 8-boat leap, and she jumped extremely high before the 2 of them could reach her. Katsuo saw that, and said that he could snipe Asagiri at her landing point, but since this was Byakko's big debut, they would attempt an aerial takedown instead. He then climbed onto Byakko, and they leaped upward toward Asagiri, who appeared worried when she saw them. Katsuo then ordered Byakko to initiate intake, and he immediately inhaled an enormous amount of air. Asagiri said that she had not expected Katsuo to jump directly toward her, and that made himself into a huge target. At the same time, she used Majin-style Gyoten Hijin against Katsuo once again, and the first slash seemed to hit him. However, only Byakuo was struck, while Katsuo managed to leap upward from his back. Asagiri then attacked Katsuo with her second slash, and he ordered Byakuo to initiate exhaust. Byakuo immediately acted and aimed his exhaust pipe toward Katsuo. He then released an incredibly powerful blast of air, which struck Katsuo and allowed him to evade Asagiri's second slash. The exhaust even blasted Katsuo directly toward Asagiri, surprising her. She wondered what Byakuo's exhaust had done, while Katsuo replied that this was exactly what it was designed to do. At the same time, Pencilgon explained that intake and exhaust allowed Byakuo to compress air and eject it to create charged masses of air. Katsuo then said that it was now time to beat Asagiri up and used Spirit Fist, type, Red Impact, driving both claws of his armor toward her. However, something surprised him because she managed to produce a shield, only causing him to give off 65 damage. Even Sunraku and Pencilgon were shocked by what Asagiri had done, while she laughed and said that she had caught Katsuo exactly where she wanted him. She then sarcastically apologized and said that she had forgotten to mention that she was more than just a woman with a sword. Rebellious was delighted by what he saw and heard, saying that they had finally got it. They would now see who was going to get beaten up, and he called Katsuo a dumbass. Asagiri said that the shield also had an intrinsic skill within it, and she was about to slam it into Katsuo. Rebellious wore an enormous grin as he watched, while the entire Wolfgang clan waited to see what would happen. Asagiri activated then reversal counter and pushed the shield against Katsuo, driving him toward the ground. Katsuo wondered why she had used a shield bash against him. It had dealt almost no damage, so he thought he could endure it, but then he noticed something that shocked him. He could no longer move because his stamina had been completely depleted. He asked Asagiri whether the shield drained his stamina, and she confirmed that it did. She said that the more carefully Katsuo monitored his stamina in the middle of the battle, the more it would hurt him. If they crashed into the ground from that height and at that speed, she was certain it would be overkill not only for Katsuo, but for her as well. However, Katsuo, who was beneath her, would receive the fall damage first. His HP would reach 0 an instant before hers, making her the winner of the battle. Katsuo said that he had no idea Schwarzwolf was so focused on PvP and admitted that it was his mistake. He still had something more to add as his armor began beeping, while Asagiri appeared startled. He said that if the battle was about who had the better equipment, he believed his Byakuo would win. At the same time, Byakuo began moving and leaped toward him. He caught Katsuo before he could fall, while Asagiri could do nothing but scream in fear because she was the one about to crash into the ground. That was exactly what happened, and the expressions on Rebellious and Dine Dasher's faces showed a mixture of irritation and disbelief, while Pencilgon looked delighted, as though she had expected it. Katsuo even said that Wolfgang now had 2 victories, while Sunraku continued celebrating and taunting them from behind. Meanwhile, Asagiri's HP had dropped to 0. Sunraku then said that Schwarzwolf no longer looked very confident and appeared extremely irritated by him. He continued by asking as they realize it yet. They boast about being the greatest, but could they now see who was truly the best? In the middle of Sunraku's bragging, Katsuo asked why he was the one boasting. Meanwhile, Rebellious scolded Asagiri and Dine Dasher because Wolfgang was now on a hot streak. Asagiri apologized and said that she had not expected Katsuo to use a robot. Rebellious said that he would let that pass and asked what was going on with the Tiger Mech. Siger 100 then explained that it was part of Katsuo's reward for defeating Weathermon, and Rebellious finally understood what it was. He admitted to himself that Katsuo was no pushover, but based on everything he had seen from him so far, he believed that dealing enough damage could defeat him. The only problem was what they would do about the mech. Fighting 2 opponents at once was already a problem, but countering the mech would require them to use a considerable amount of their equipment. At that moment, Katsuo remembered that he needed to conserve his equipment's battery, because simply starting Byakuo consumed a large amount of energy, so he would put him away for the time being. Rebellious was surprised when he heard about the mech's battery, and he became delighted, as though he had already thought of a strategy. Siger 100 fell into thought when she heard that, while Pencilgon asked them who would fight next. She also asked whether it would be Rebellious because she knew that he was eager to participate. Rebellious replied that it would not be him because Saiger Zero would be fighting next. An intense aura then enveloped the surroundings, while Saiger Zero appeared to have something she wanted to say. Rebellious then asked whether Saiger Zero was ready to fight and said that he believed Katsuo's mech was nearly out of battery power. With her powerful skills and stats, she could easily spar with Katsuo until his mech's battery was depleted, then finish him however she wanted. While saying that, Rebellious noticed something. Saiger Zero did not appear to be listening to him and was merely staring into the distance. He turned toward where she was looking and saw that she was staring at Saiger 100. Saiger Zero approached her sister, but before she could speak, Saiger 100 said that she knew they had already discussed it. Rebellious added that it was true and said that whatever personal drama they had, Saiger Zero was still a member of Schwarzwolf for the time being. He added that they needed her to perform her duty. She agreed and stepped forward, saying that she would return. Rebellious was extremely pleased and told himself that once Katsuo's mech ran out of battery power, it would be impossible for Saiger Zero to lose. After that, they could begin a winning streak of their own. At that moment, someone raised her hand. It was Pencilgon, and she asked whether she could have a moment. Rebellious appeared irritated by that, while Pencilgon opened her game interface. She said that the total amount Schwarzwolf had spent on Saiger Zero, including the cost of the magic scrolls used during the battle against Katarnid, was around 75 million money. It just so happened that she was prepared to pay that amount right there, and she had already prepared the transaction through her interface. Rebellious asked what she was doing. Pencilgon told him not to pretend that he had forgotten what they had discussed the previous week. Once the money had been transferred to Schwarzwolf, their agreement would officially be complete. She then sent the money, which entered Saiger 100's account. She confirmed the transaction and said that it appeared they had a deal. The Schwarzwolf logo then disappeared from Saiger Zero's cape, and she announced that she was officially leaving Schwarzwolf and transferring to Wolfgang. Katsuo and Sunraku were delighted and welcomed Saiger Zero in a taunting way towards the Schwarzwolf members. Rebellious and his followers could not believe what had happened, while Pencilgon said that this created a problem for them. According to the rules of the battle, only members of a clan could be included on its team, and she asked whether that was not what they had agreed upon. Kyogoku mockingly asked what that meant, and Pencilgon replied that Saiger Zero could no longer fight for Schwarzwolf because she was no longer a member of that clan. Therefore, Schwarzwolf would need to choose another participant. At the same time, Sunraku and Katsuo continued taunting them, while Rebellious called it bullshit and asked whether Wolfgang truly expected them to accept it. He even tried to complain to Saiger 100, but she said that he had been present during the meeting. Rebellious also knew how Saiger Zero felt, but he argued that Wolfgang was obviously pulling a trick. Pencilgon then said that they could make an emergency call for another member if they wanted, but then pointed out that they could not. The Colosseum they were inside was completely closed, so no one apart from those already present could enter. Rebellious appeared ready to explode with rage and said that Wolfgang had set everything up. He had not expected them to obtain 75 million money in only 1 week, so he questioned whether Pencilgon's claim that she was deeply in debt had merely been a lie. Otherwise, perhaps someone in Wolfgang was extraordinarily wealthy. At the same time, Pencilgon asked Sunraku how much money he had earned in Reluiath, but Sunraku replied that he would not pay even a single cent of Pencilgon's debt. Meanwhile, Rebellious suddenly switched expressions from anger to laughter, causing Dine Dasher to become concerned. Rebellious then said that he finally understood what was happening and promised that he would personally cover the cost. He asked for permission to access the clan's shared vault because he could no longer allow Wolfgang to keep beating them. If he wanted to protect their clan's prestige, they needed to bury Wolfgang right then and there. Pencilgon said that the sideshow had gone on long enough, and that it was time to begin the massacre that would serve as the main event. As she said that, she and the entire Wolfgang clan, except for Saiger Zero, wore extremely sinister grins. Rebellious and Katsuo finally faced each other, with Saiger 100 closely watching them. Rebellious called Katsuo's decision to summon robotic equipment for a numerical advantage completely insane and said that it was a dirty trick. On top of that, Wolfgang had taken Saiger Zero from them at that exact moment, and he was certain that they had been aiming for this opportunity from the beginning. Meanwhile, Hyogoku jokingly said that if someone looked up the meaning of pissed in the dictionary, they would see Rebellious's face. Sunraku then asked whether that meant Saiger Zero was now part of their fighting team. Pencil Gon replied that it would be nice if Saiger Zero could take her place in the battle, but she thought they should keep her on the sidelines for the time being. It would be cruel to make her fight her former clanmates immediately after transferring. Sunraku was surprised that Pencil Gon cared about someone else's feelings, which confused her, while Saiger Zero apologized for the trouble she had caused. After that, Pencil Gon cheered for Katsuo and told him to make it 3 victories in a row for them, and he replied that he would. Since Pencil Gon was already asking him for something, it was time for him to deliver, and he reactivated his non-standard tactical gear. Rebellious was shocked and said that if Katsuo was only level 86 at that moment, then he had better not tell him that he was using the level down cycle, which made Katsuo wonder what that was. Pencil Gon explained that in SLF, skills could be learned or evolved as a player's level increased, and certain items allowed someone to lower their level so they could develop those skills even further. The more times someone went through the level down cycle, the more degenerate, or rather, the more honed their skills became, and Katsuo finally understood. Rebellious was shocked that Katsuo did not know about it because the 2 opponents he had already defeated were level 120. Rebellious was about to reveal his own level, but Katsuo interrupted him and said that it did not matter. Rebellious could be level 500 or even level 1000 for all he cared. He even asked whether Rebellious was trying to waste time until the battery of his equipment ran out, which surprised him. Because of that, Katsuo said that he would give Rebellious exactly what he wanted. He would stop worrying about the remaining charge of his equipment and give it everything he had. After saying that, he combined with Byakuo and wore him like a suit of armor, shocking everyone from both Schwartz-Wolf and Wolfgang. After Katsuo's extremely impressive transformation, Rebellious openly showed his surprise, while Katsuo said that the battle was now truly one-on-one. He had already thrown away the advantage Rebellious had accused him of having. However, those tactical beasts only truly shone while in combined mode, and he activated Intake. Rebellious prepared to fight by drawing 2 swords, while Katsuo activated Exhaust. Because of that, he rapidly launched himself toward Rebellious. Katsuo was too fast for him, so Rebellious activated his Freeze and Surge skill. After saying Cositus, he released magic from his sword, which worried Katsuo. Katsuo even felt his armor beginning to stiffen and said that it would probably be best to keep moving. That was exactly what he did, and when he saw Rebellious seemingly preparing another attack, he became alarmed. Rebellious used Inferno through his other sword, while Katsuo countered by activating Exhaust. He released the compressed Cositus Cold Blast to counter Rebellious's Inferno. Rebellious was shocked that Katsuo had captured his freezing air, and when the Inferno and Cositus attacks collided, they created an explosion that sent both of them flying. Sunraku was shocked when he saw that, while Pencil Gon said that the flames had probably caused all the compressed cold air to explode. Saiger Zero said that the steam was obstructing their view. Rebellious emerged from the smoke and realized that Cositus was apparently not a good match against Inferno. At that moment, he heard a mechanical whirring sound behind him and turned around with fear on his face. It was Katsuo, who tried to slash him with his claws, but Rebellious managed to block the attack. Katsuo was somewhat surprised by that, while Rebellious said that there was a reason why he was the vice-captain of Schwartz-Wolf. He added that his job was an upgraded form of swordsman called Swordmaster. At the same time, he swung his sword at Katsuo, who could feel the heat from it. Rebellious then mockingly called Katsuo a noob and asked whether he knew anything about job upgrades. He said that they required an enormous amount of effort, but before he could finish, Katsuo punched him in the side. Rebellious cried out in pain, while Katsuo mockingly said that becoming a sword master truly was an impressive upgrade for him. After that, Katsuo scraped his claws against Rebellious's sword and called it fancy. Rebellious obviously did not appreciate that, while Katsuo asked whether it was rare. Rebellious replied that it was a unique weapon and had been extremely difficult to acquire. He said that if Katsuo damaged it, he would make him pay for it, then tried to slash him again, but Katsuo repeatedly leaped away. Rebellious became irritated by Katsuo's constant evasion, while Sunraku said that Byakuo was impressive, even though he had never personally tried using him. However, Byakuo would not suit him. Pencilgon asked why because she thought he would match Sunraku's agility-focused fighting style. Sunraku replied that someone who only looked at the acceleration provided by intake and exhaust might think that, but those two moves are a little bit offense or defense. Exhaust was used for evasion, and the suit needed to compress air before exhaust could be used to dodge. He added that it was not only useful for evasion. Whenever someone needed to stop immediately, they also had to use intake and exhaust. Every action in combat relied on those two moves, and the user needed to perform numerous difficult controls while operating them independently through all four limbs at the same time. Sunraku was certain that it was just as difficult as Levin Hazard, which increased control sensitivity, although in a different way. It required a particular kind of instinct that could only be mastered through intense, repetitive practice. Sunraku was more suited to moving in straight lines than performing such complicated maneuvers. Because of that, Sarayu was the perfect match for him. After hearing all of that, Pencilgon agreed and said that she would never put in that much effort. She then asked whether Sunraku thought Katsuo and Byakuo had perfect synergy, like adding fuel to a fire. Back in their battle, Katsuo was caught in an exposed position and Rebellious was about to strike him with a slash, so Katsuo activated exhaust. As a result, Rebellious struck the ground instead, while Katsuo leaped into the air. From that position, Katsuo used exhaust once again. He spun himself at incredible speed and struck Rebellious directly in the face with a roundhouse kick. While his foot was still pressed against Rebellious's face, he activated exhaust again, causing Rebellious to become alarmed. Rebellious was sent flying an enormous distance and crashed violently onto the ground. Katsuo even commented on how far Rebellious had been launched and said that because it had not been a closed fist attack, it had not dealt much damage. Meanwhile, Kyogoku asked who Katsuo really was because his movements were incredibly skilled. At the same time, Rebellious cursed Katsuo, while Katsuo added that Byakuo was truly amazing. He thought that if he had something like Byakuo in Galaxia Heroes Chaos, he might be able to defeat Sylvia, or at least survive 3 rounds against her. At that moment, Byakuo warned Katsuo that their energy levels were looking bad, so Katsuo realized that they were approaching their limit. Because of that, he asked Pencilgon whether he could end his run at that point. He no longer had much time left with Byakuo, while Rebellious did not seem likely to change. Pencilgon replied that they would see about that, while Rebellious took something out. He said that he was the vice captain of the world-class clan Schwarzwolf, and if Wolfgang believed he would allow them to defeat his clan, they could forget about it. He needed to win that battle, even if it meant risking everything he had, and what he had taken out were several scrolls. Kyogoku asked whether Rebellious was holding magic scrolls, which could only be used once and were extremely expensive. Saiger Zero replied that they had come from Schwarzwolf's archives. Katsuo then said that he hated to admit it, but if Pencilgon was correct about what was going to happen, then it was time for him to use his full power. Rebellious's face clearly showed how eager he was to use the scrolls, which surprised Asagiri. Meanwhile, Saiger 100 silently observed the surroundings. On Wolfgang's side, after Saiger Zero mentioned that those scrolls had come from Wolfgang's stash, Kyogoku said that they were high-end items and was certain that they provided powerful buffs. However, against Katsuo, she was not sure whether Rebellious would have enough time to invoke them. At the same time, Rebellious grinned and began invoking the scrolls. He used them one after another, while Katsuo merely stood there and watched without doing anything. Asagiri and Dine Dasher were shocked to see that, while Rebellious was delighted that he had been right about Katsuo not attacking him while he invoked the spells. He knew that Wolfgang was not there merely to win. The way they fought made it clear that they wanted to provoke, insult, and belittle Schwarzwolf. He even knew what Katsuo was thinking. By defeating him, Schwarzwolf's vice-captain, while he was fighting at full strength, Katsuo would be able to humiliate Schwarzwolf even further. Katsuo then said that Rebellious seemed to know when to use his power, and at that moment, his armor began beeping. Byakuo's battery had already run out, so Katsuo removed him while saying that, for Schwarzwolf, that team battle was a fork in the road. If they lost there without revealing everything they had, he would never stop mocking them for it. After removing Byakuo, he then pulled out a gauntlet and said that if this was how Rebellious intended to fight, then he should respond with everything he had as well. Rebellious appeared somewhat proud of being a sword master, even though it was only a minor job upgrade. So Katsuo said that he wanted to introduce him to his own main job. As he said that, he threw the gauntlet into the air and struck it with both fists simultaneously. The gauntlet shattered, causing Sunraku to ask why Katsuo was destroying his own equipment. Pencilgon replied that it was called Scrap and Build, and it increased the power of Katsuo's attacks, which surprised Sunraku. Pencilgon added that Katsuo could destroy his own weapons and receive a boost depending on what he destroyed. It was a job that consumed an enormous amount of resources and was the job upgrade for a martial artist like Katsuo, known as Destroyer. Rebellious was shocked when he learned that and remarked that even a complete beginner could apparently obtain a job upgrade. However, he told himself that, if he remembered correctly, the initiation gauntlet Katsuo had crushed was a quest clear reward obtained by developing the monk job. He wondered why Katsuo had chosen to use it. He admitted that it was a rare item, but it was not particularly difficult to obtain. Meanwhile, he was using 4 magic scrolls from the 10 million class simultaneously. Those scrolls would strengthen him to a level Katsuo could not comprehend, and their effects became visible as power overflowed from his body. He then laughed and declared that he was now in full max mode as he charged toward Katsuo. He even said that Katsuo could have fought against that power if he had attacked him with his robot, instead of allowing himself to be baited. After that, Rebellious struck Katsuo with Freeze and Surge Cositis, surrounding him with extremely cold air. Rebellious said that without his mech equipment, Katsuo no longer had his anti-Cositis barrier. With the incredibly high stats of the magical Ice Blade Cositis, he would send a frigid mist to freeze Katsuo's body and slow down his avatar's movements. He added that only one Cositis existed in Shangri-La Frontier, making it a literal unique weapon that belonged to him. Anyone who entered that icy fog would begin freezing, and even Rebellious, its wielder, would normally become completely stiff. However, the scrolls he had used had strengthened his anti-freeze buff, while the flame sword in his right hand, Inferno, protected him from the extreme cold. He said that Inferno was not a unique weapon, but he had commissioned it from a man who possessed the highest level forging jobs and had it created using the rarest materials. Weapons did not become much rarer than that, and even someone with a job level as high as his could not expect to obtain such a weapon without using every possible material and spending an enormous amount of money. When those two swords were combined, they produced a dominating synergy that unlocked power beyond the sum of their parts. Because of that, Rebellious told Katsuo to continue acting tough and said that he hoped Katsuo would regret his own arrogance as he died before an utterly unavoidable defeat. Rebellious added that it was time for Katsuo to learn his place, calling him a worthless toddler of a player, and tried to stab him with the flame sword. Katsuo managed to evade the attack, but the sword still grazed him and burned his cheek. At the same time, he punched Rebellious's hand, causing him to drop the sword. Rebellious was completely shocked and tried to reach for it, but Katsuo moved first and grabbed the weapon by its blade. On top of that, Katsuo struck Rebellious in the stomach with his elbow, sending him flying away. Katsuo then called out his combo, red, blue, and yellow, and released the sword. Using that 3-color combination, he activated Spirit Fist, Dark Overstrike, and punched Rebellious's flame sword, leaving him utterly shocked. Rebellious's sword shattered, and it felt as though time had slowed down at that moment. The Schwarzwolf members stared in disbelief, and the members of Wolfgang reacted the same way. As for Rebellious, the sword's owner, the sight drove him into a frenzy because he could not accept what had happened. Inferno was completely destroyed, and Rebellious could not accept what had happened. He even asked what Katsuo had done, while Katsuo pretended to apologize. He said that he had been trying to return Rebellious's weapon, but it was far too hot, so he simply punched it back toward him, which caused it to break. He said that was simply what happened because he was a destroyer, while the entire Schwarzwolf clan looked completely shocked, except for Siger 100. Meanwhile, Rebellious was furious and asked who cared if Katsuo was a destroyer. Katsuo did not receive any buffs from destroying another person's weapon anyway. On top of that, he had destroyed an extremely rare weapon that Rebellious could not even recreate, and he asked whether Katsuo had any idea how difficult it had been for him to make it. Sunraku said that something like that hurt even more when someone was a hardcore player. while Pencilgon explained that destroyed weapons could not be repaired in SLF, so Rebellious' anger was understandable. Katsuo said that Rebellious was supposed to be a top player, so why was he complaining about a perfectly legal part of the game? At the same time, Katsuo charged toward him again. He added that if Rebellious kept crying, he would turn his other sword into shaved ice as well. Rebellious cursed at that moment and once again used Cositis to keep Katsuo away, slashing the area in front of him. Crystals emerged from the attack and formed a sharp wall that blocked Katsuo's path. Katsuo was surprised that Rebellious's remaining sword could do something like that and said that it truly was a unique weapon. Because of that, he said that he would stop holding back with his own equipment as well. He began another combination and used Gold-Copper Tandem Spirit Fist, linking Cold Copper, punching through and shattering Rebellious's crystal wall. Rebellious was shocked when he saw it and tried to remain calm because he still had Cositis and his buffs. He even told Katsuo that Cositis was the weapon he had used to climb the ranks of Schwarzwolf, but while he was saying that, Katsuo activated Silver Tandem Spirit Fist and met his attack head-on. Using Connecting Silver, Katsuo punched Rebellious's sword and managed to shatter the crystals covering it. Rebellious's sword was even sent flying, while Katsuo's expression showed just how serious he had become. Asagiri could not believe that Katsuo was actually managing to break Cositis apart, while Siger 100 carefully thought about what was happening to the sword. She realized that Katsuo was advancing by one color level with each skill while unleashing progressively stronger spirit fists than before. The strongest one would be next, the third and final strike that Katsuo was currently preparing. When Cositis bounced across the ground, Katsuo immediately looked toward it as though he were targeting it, while Rebellious stared at the sword with concern. The two of them ran toward the weapon at the same time, and Rebellious told Katsuo to back off because he knew that Katsuo intended to destroy it. He added that Katsuo would not get what he wanted and called him a moron. Katsuo had only increased his attack strength, while Rebellious had increased his speed as well. Rebellious looked extremely confident, but his expression suddenly changed to concern. He saw Katsuo right beside him and realized that Katsuo was already overtaking him. He was completely shocked when he noticed it, while Katsuo activated his gold attack. It released an incredibly bright light, and everyone focused intensely on what was happening. At that moment, Rebellious begged Katsuo to give him 1 second, which shocked his allies. He wondered whether he could throw a weapon at Katsuo, but immediately realized that it would be too slow. He needed a long-range skill to reach Katsuo, so he asked himself whether he had won. The answer that came to mind was Inferno, but he no longer had it. The memory of Katsuo destroying it immediately returned to him, as Katsuo activated Alchemic Spirit Fist, and Rebellious could already see how Katsuo was going to destroy Cositis. Because of that, he suddenly shouted that he surrendered. Katsuo was surprised when he heard that, and so was Wolfgang. Rebellious shouted that Katsuo had already defeated him and that he accepted his loss, so they should end the battle. It was the only solution he could think of to prevent his unique weapon from being destroyed. He even smiled because he thought the battle was finally over, but he was shocked when Katsuo continued moving. Katsuo mockingly apologized and said that he could no longer stop his momentum, so he hoped Rebellious had some parting words for his unique weapon. Rebellious could not accept it, while Katsuo unleashed Alchemic Spirit Fist, Alchemic Gold Smash. Once again, an overwhelmingly bright light erupted, and Rebellious completely lost his mind. Wolfgang looked impressed, while Rebellious's two followers in Schwarzwolf appeared to feel sorry for him. However, Siger 100 noticed something that surprised her. When the smoke from Katsuo's punch cleared, it was revealed that he had struck the ground instead of the sword. Rebellious was still panicking at that moment, while Katsuo asked whether Cositis was truly the sword that had carried him to the position of vice captain. He said that if Rebellious had not been joking about that, then from that point onward, every time he looked at that sword, Katsuo wanted him to remember exactly who had allowed him to remain in that position. Pencilgon remarked that the destroyer truly never disappointed, taking the pride of a top-level player and completely crushing it. Siger 100 looked toward her when she said that, while Sunraku said that he felt Katsuo had actually shown Rebellious some mercy, although what he had done was not bad. Katsuo asked whether Sunraku had a problem with it, while Sunraku replied that it had been better than he expected, but it was already in the past and had ended quickly. That meant only one exhibition match remained with their insider from Schwarzwolf, and then the battle would be over. At the same time, Saiger 100 stepped forward, causing Pencilgon to wonder what she intended to do. Hyogoku said that if the battle was going to end like that, then there had been no reason to invite her and Sunraku there, and she asked Pencilgon whether that was correct. Pencilgon replied that it was, and said that this was how things were supposed to go. Saiger Zero appeared to have something she wanted to say, so Sunraku asked her what was wrong. She said that she was pretty sure her older sister, Saiger 100, intended to crush the entire Wolfgang clan before the night was over. At that moment, Saiger 100 asked Katsuo whether he was Oikatsuo. She told him that she owed him a debt of gratitude, but as the leader of her clan, she could not show such a half-hearted performance in front of them. Throughout that battle, Katsuo had shown just how powerful he was. She added that she did not want anyone to remain unaware of what was happening. So in the interest of fairness, she believed there was something important she needed to tell Katsuo, which confused him. As she spoke, she brought something out, while Pencilgon said that she had known Saiger 100 would do that. She said that there was no problem because this had been their intention from the very beginning, so Saiger 100 should go ahead and begin. In the battle between Schwarzwolf and Wolfgang, Saiger 100 would serve as their final boss. Saiger 100 then told them that she simply wanted them to know that she was far stronger than anyone else in her clan. Katsuo seemed unwilling to believe that Saiger 100 was stronger than anyone else in Schwarzwolf, and he even asked whether his 3 consecutive victories had not phased her. At the same time, Sunraku asked Pencilgon whether she was certain that she still needed him and Kyodimate there. Was Pencilgon assuming that Katsuo would lose or something? Pencilgon replied that if the two of them had fought before, Katsuo might have some options open. She even teased him by adding, but then merely stared at Sunraku, who asked what she meant. She replied that she was not sure how to explain it to someone like him, who had honed his skills through the worst games imaginable. However, she told Sunraku to imagine that he was playing a normal game and fighting an extremely powerful raid boss. If he wanted to defeat it, he would need to raise his level, build the proper equipment set, and obtain the right information. However, before any of that, Sunraku would first need to improve his skills at the game itself. When it came to Lycagon the Night Slayer, a boss even stronger than a normal raid boss, preparing to defeat a monster like that would take an entire year. If someone put in all that effort, Pencilgon asked what kind of player Sunraku thought that person would become. Meanwhile, Saiger 100 asked Katsuo whether he was ready to begin. Katsuo then struck a pose and said that he was ready if she was. If she was trying that hard to rile him up, then he would give the battle everything he had, and he charged toward her. He even wondered what Saiger 100's opening move would be and what the leader of a top clan would do. At that moment, Saiger 100 drew another sword and threw it toward Katsuo. That surprised him. However, she then drew another sword and threw that one at him as well. Because of that, Sunraku began wondering what Saiger 100's strategy was and whether she intended to throw her swords around and retrieve them whenever she needed them. At that moment, Saiger 100 drew her 4th and 5th swords and threw them into the air. Katsuo was shocked when he saw that, but he told himself not to flinch and to keep attacking. He activated Spirit Fist, Red, but in the middle of calling out the skill, he noticed something. One of Saiger 100's swords suddenly flew toward him from the side, although he managed to block it. Naturally, he was completely shocked, while Saiger 100 grinned as though she had already caught him. After that, another sword flew toward him from the front, confusing him once again. This time, he was hurt when the sword's nail-like blades pierced him, so he asked what kind of combination attack it was and what was happening. Sunraku appeared to realize what was happening with the swords Saiger 100 had thrown, while Katsuo retreated to observe the situation. However, he bumped into something. It was yet another one of Saiger 100's swords, and he asked what it was doing there. Another sword then embedded itself in the ground in front of him, and Katsuo finally wondered whether Saiger 100 was remotely controlling the swords. She then struck him with strike number 1, a piercing attack that hit Katsuo directly in the stomach and caused him tremendous pain. Sunraku asked whether players obtained skills like that after upgrading from the swordsman job. Saiger Zero replied that her sister's job was not merely an upgrade, but one level beyond an upgraded job. Her job was Master of the Sword, the fully maxed out version of her class. At the same time, Katsuo retreated from Saiger 100 and tried to punch one of her swords, but it moved on its own and avoided him. Sunraku wondered about the Master of the Sword job class, while Kyogoku explained that what they were witnessing was the intrinsic magic available only to that job, known as Servant. By using a Master Sword, the wielder could control several Servant swords simultaneously. Pencilgon said that the number of swords someone could control increased as they raised their Master of the Sword proficiency. In Saiger 100's case, she could control 4 at the same time. That was the current maximum number that could be used simultaneously through Servant, placing Saiger 100 among the highest class of Masters of the Sword. At that moment, Saiger 100 continued attacking Katsuo with her Servant swords, and Katsuo could not block all of them coming from every direction. She followed that with the Servant's duo attack, Forceful Runner combo, in which a Servant sword struck Katsuo before she slashed him with her Master Sword. That resulted in Katsuo's death and defeat, although Sunraku did not immediately notice because he was still thinking about the remotely controlled swords, while Saiger Zero was surprised by Katsuo's defeat. Sunraku told himself that he felt as though he had heard of the Master of the Sword before. Meanwhile, Katsuo could not believe that he had been defeated so quickly without even understanding what was happening. He also scolded his companions for not telling him about Saiger 100's abilities. Sunraku then mockingly asked when Katsuo had lost and told him it had been a good game, while Pencilgon praised Saiger 100's performance. She said that this was the one thing she had wanted to see. Meanwhile, Kyogoku mocked Katsuo for bragging so much only to be beaten so easily, which genuinely irritated him. He said that Saiger 100's power was insane. He could accept that she could control the swords, but each one of them also possessed tremendous offensive power. Saiger Zero explained that her sister's Master Sword was the sacred blade Excalibur, which impressed Katsuo. Pencilgon added that it was a unique weapon among unique weapons, causing Katsuo to realize just how disadvantaged he had been in that battle. He then asked about the sword that had struck him numerous times, and Saiger Zero replied that she believed it was called Super Cat Teaser Level 100, which could strike someone 30 times with a single attack. Katsuo questioned the name and said that it inflicted far too much pain for something with such a stupid name. Saiger Zero said that its terminology was unusual, but it was a rare item that could only be crafted by someone with the Holy Hammer. She even mentioned that there was also a magical sword on the same level as Cositus. At the same time, Sunraku thought about the cat-related name of the sword, and he remembered something. He said that he had once met a man who called himself a Master of the Sword, and his name was Aramis. Kyogoku asked who that was, while Sunraku added that the only difference was that Aramis attacked using an ordinary sword and also possessed some kind of solo skill. Pencilgon said that he was probably referring to Servant Solo, Primal Slash, which could be obtained after becoming a Master of the Sword and could be used even without Servant Swords. Sunraku asked whether more skills became available as someone controlled more swords simultaneously, and Pencilgon confirmed that they did, including Duo, Trio, and other attacks. If Saiger 100's Master Sword was included, she could fight using 5 swords simultaneously, which could be called a quintet. Kyogoku said that Saiger 100 was truly a menace and, as far as she knew, possessed the most powerful frontline job. According to Katsuo, she was like a frontline fighter who also possessed rear-line abilities and excelled at mid-range combat. Sunraku became excited after hearing all of that, and said that the battle was becoming more interesting and that Saiger 100 had finally awakened him. He even declared that he would fight next, but Kyogoku told him to wait. She said that she was next because she had already been kept waiting for far too long. Pencilgon interrupted, saying that she knew both of them were excited, but they already had an established fighting order, which surprised them. At that moment, Saiger 100 asked how much longer they intended to keep talking and whether Pencilgon was truly the next person who would fight. She told her to hurry, while Pencilgon said that if Kyogoku and Sunraku did not have a strategy yet, she believed that even they would struggle to win. Saiger 100 had not revealed her full strength yet, so she hoped that they could help identify her weaknesses for her. At the same time, she stepped forward, changed her outfit, and drew her weapon. She brought out her spear and wore an extremely revealing outfit, saying that while Kyogoku and Sunraku worked on that, she would lay the foundation for them. The long-awaited battle between Pencilgon and Saiger 100 finally started, and Pencilgon said that they should begin. She said that she would not explain anything to Saiger 100 in advance, calling her Momo, but she was ready to impress her. Saiger 100 replied that she could only hope Pencilgon would remain true to her words until the very end. From the sidelines, Sunraku remarked that, considering Saiger 100's power, he was impressed that Pencilgon could still boast like that. Katsuo then said in a disappointed tone that it was good to see Pencilgon had bought herself yet another fancy set of equipment. Sunraku agreed, while Katsuo added that he had to admit Pencilgon always stood firmly by her decisions. Because of that, it was no longer surprising that people said she had left all her shame in her mother's womb, along with her conscience. Pencilgon appeared to have heard that, while Kyogoku said that she did not think she would have the courage to wear something like that, which Rei agreed with. Pencilgon then said that she knew what shame was, and it just so happened that this was the best equipment she could bring into that battle. Katsuo asked what that had to do with the outfit, while Sunraku called Pencilgon a liar because she simply enjoyed dressing that way. At that moment, Saiger 100 asked whether the weapon was the sacred spear Kalefuelch, which surprised Pencilgon. Saiger 100 added that it was one of the 5 wished weapons in the game, and her sacred blade Excalibur was another one of them. Because of that, she told Pencilgon to take good care of it. She warned her not to mistreat the spear and break it in the middle of the battle. As she said that, she sent a sword flying toward Pencilgon. It struck the spot where Pencilgon had been standing, but she leaped away and questioned the attack. She asked whether Saiger 100 thought drawing yet another sword was some kind of joke, then charged at her. Pencilgon added that the durability of wished weapons could be restored at any time as long as there was MP available. Unless a player was an idiot, they would never need to worry about a wished weapon breaking. Sunraku was surprised to learn that wished weapons could apparently be restored, while Saiger Zero explained that all those weapons possessed 3 intrinsic traits. The first was the ability to refill their durability, just as Pencilgon had said, and it was called Irony Repair. Another was Unbroken, which remained active at all times. Through that trait, whenever a player's HP reached 0, they had a 25% chance of being revived. Sunraku was completely shocked when he learned that and asked whether that was impossible to happen. Kyogoku replied that although it revived a player, it did not restore very much HP, only around 10%. Sunraku asked what the third trait was, and Kyogoku replied that he would see it soon enough. She was fairly certain that Pencilgon intended to activate it at some point. At that moment, Pencilgon was evading Saiger 100's many attacks, and the cat sword nearly struck her as well. Fortunately, she managed to block it, and asked whether the attacks were simply going to continue without stopping. After saying that, she pulled out a crimson straw doll and launched it with her spear. Saiger 100 was surprised, and used 3 of her swords to block it. Katsuo said that the doll probably does something crazy, while Sunraku agreed because Saiger 100 had used 3 swords to stop it. According to Kyogoku, they had already gone far beyond fair and square, while Pencilgon jokingly said that Saiger 100 did not seem so easy to hit. Saiger 100 told her not to kid herself as she attacked with her servant swords. Pencilgon evaded every one of them, and even planted her spear into the ground to perform a vaulting maneuver. She jokingly asked whether Saiger 100 was certain about throwing so many swords around because she possessed more than 1 straw doll. That irritated Saiger 100, while Sunraku remarked that Pencilgon was keeping up much better than he had expected. He even asked whether she had always been that strong, and Katsuo replied that she had probably strengthened herself before the battle against Weathermon. When Pencilgon landed on the ground, Saiger 100 gave her a serious look, and in an instant, a sword appeared beside her. Pencilgon blocked it with her spear and became irritated by what she saw, even causing her to curse. The sword had managed to damage her spear, which also shocked Katsuo and Sunraku. Sunraku still could not believe what he had seen, while Saiger Zero explained that the sword responsible was Las Pegasius. Whenever it struck an opponent's weapon, it could remove a large portion of that weapon's durability. Sunraku asked what kind of trait that was, and whether the weapon had been specifically created to destroy other weapons. Meanwhile, Rebellious was frightened by it because he was already traumatized by having his weapon destroyed. Sunraku then remarked that Saiger 100 possessed excellent equipment, while Katsuo said that she did not even need any elaborate skills. Sunraku added that he had assumed all of Saiger 100's equipment was specialized for Lycagon, but she was apparently prepared for PvP as well. According to Kyogoku, Saiger 100 was addicted to the game, so she was prepared for practically anything. Of course, it went without saying that she was also experienced in PvP. Katsuo asked whether Saiger 100 possessed more than just special skills because she could not even get close to her. Kyogoku replied that, apart from the standard wished weapon traits, Kael'thwelch also possessed a top-level armor-ignoring effect, which appeared to surprise Katsuo. Kyogoku added that if it struck Saiger 100, it would simply shear away her HP, while Katsuo jokingly said that perhaps it would spear away her HP because Pencilgon's weapon was a spear. Because of that, Kyogoku said that Katsuo had earned a death sentence for making such a terrible joke, while Katsuo played along and begged her not to do it. Sunraku then thought about Saiger 100's mid-level vitality and realized that she survived by evading attacks and using her swords to block. Because of that, he observed the battle carefully and asked Saiger Zero whether the floating swords moved automatically. She replied that the servant swords were semi-automatic. They were configured to fight automatically and pursue their targets, but they could also be switched to manual control. Sunraku said that made sense and that it would be impossible for any person to possess a brain large enough to control 4 swords manually at the same time. Katsuo asked whether that was not excessively overpowered, even for a master-level job that required an enormous amount of training. Kyogoku said that Saiger 100 was not bulletproof and, as she had already explained, it was not a skill. It was something called intrinsic magic. Sunraku asked what that meant, and Kyogoku replied that as long as Servant remained active, Saiger 100 continuously consumed MP, and the more Servant swords she used, the greater the HP drain became. If Saiger 100 used Quintet, it would consume MP as though she were using a magic specialist job. Sunraku considered that and told himself that although the game offered many ways to restore MP, those methods were currently prohibited during the battle. That could become an opening they could exploit. At that moment, Saiger 100 used Sorvin solo, Primal Slash against Pencilgon, although the attack only narrowly grazed her. The powerful strike slammed into the wall, shocking the entire Wolfgang clan. Pencilgon was also surprised and remembered that Sunraku had seen the attack before. She also noticed that Saiger 100 had not used anything more powerful than a duo attack yet, and she was certain that Saiger 100 needed to conserve her energy. Alternatively, perhaps Saiger 100 simply believed that she did not need to become any more serious. After that, Pencilgon said that she now understood how powerful Saiger 100 was, but asked whether she was truly that overwhelmingly strong. Nevertheless, Pencilgon had her own way of fighting her, and in an instant, she appeared ready to pierce Saiger 100 with her spear. Saiger Zero said that the move was far too reckless, while Kyogoku disagreed. When Pencilgon swung her spear, her attack failed because a servant sword struck the spear and sent her flying an enormous distance. When she landed, Saiger 100 said that she owed Pencilgon a favor, so this time, she would play along with her. Saiger Zero then realized that Pencilgon was deliberately allowing herself to take damage, which confused Sunraku, while Kyogoku confirmed that she was correct. At that moment, Pencilgon's spear began glowing, and she said that if Saiger 100 refused to show her full strength, then she would force it out of her. Sunraku asked what was happening, and Kyogoku replied that this was the 3rd trait of a wished weapon. When the player wielding it came close to death, it kept the player's HP and MP exactly as they were while providing enormous buffs to their other stats. It was called Arouse, and Pencilgon was currently using it. Saiger 100's gaze sharpened at that moment, while Pencilgon told her that this would be her final attack. After saying that, Pencilgon charged towards Saiger 100 and told her that she hoped she was ready, which seemed to make Saiger 100 laugh. Before Pencilgon could get close, she began her counterattack and attacked her with 2 servant swords. Pencilgon managed to evade them, and said that with her current speed and stamina, she could keep up with Saiger 100's manually controlled swords as long as she kept her eyes on them. From the sidelines, Katsuo and Sunraku were shocked by how skillfully Pencilgon was moving at that moment, while Saiger 100 activated yet another sword. It flew directly toward Pencilgon, surprising her. She managed to leap away, but said that it had nearly struck her spear again. She added that she could still handle the servant swords, but because of them, she had very little room to attack, so she pulled out another straw doll. Meanwhile, Kyogoku said that Arouse did something else besides boosting stats, and that was probably what Pencilgon was trying to use. Katsuo was surprised to learn that the trait had another effect, while Pencilgon prepared to throw her straw doll and said that this was where she wanted to take a risk. She then threw the doll, and Siger 100 once again used 3 swords to block it. One of the swords struck the doll, but Siger 100 noticed something that surprised her. Pencilgon had leaped over her swords and had merely used the straw doll as a distraction. Even Kyogoku was surprised that Pencilgon had already entered spear range, while Siger 100 said that she admired her courage. However, she had forgotten about the 4th sword flying toward her. Pencilgon replied that if she allowed that to bring her down, then she did not deserve to be there. At the exact moment she said that, she propelled herself using her spear, which she thrust against one of the swords Siger 100 had used to block the doll. Because of that, she managed to launch herself away and evade the 4th sword. Siger 100 asked whether Pencilgon had used the blade to propel herself out of the way, but then realized that Pencilgon had intended to blow away that one from the very beginning. Pencilgon was already directly in front of her, but Siger 100 said that she was wide open either way. She pierced Pencilgon with one servant sword and slashed her. Sunraku could not believe what Pencilgon was doing, while Kyogoku explained that this was another aspect of Arouse. 25% of the time, the player holds out after a lethal strike. If it triggered, the player remained alive with 1 HP. However, it did not activate that time, and Pencilgon died. Siger Zero was saddened by that, but then Pencilgon began to glow. To Siger 100's surprise, Pencilgon rose again and immediately charged toward her. She said that this was the 1 in 4 chance of coming back after death, while Siger Zero identified it as Unbroken, which Sunraka recognized as the revival effect with a 25% chance of activating. After that, Pencilgon prepared to attack again, while Siger 100 did the same and used Servant Trio, synchronized for the first time, creating copies of herself. Sunraku was shocked when he saw it, while Pencilgon threw her spear and said that this was all or nothing. Siger 100 and one of her copies prepared to defend themselves and blocked the spear. They even managed to deflect it away, sending it flying into the distance. Pencilgon said that it was not bad, but it turned out that the second copy had already stabbed her. She added that Momo truly never disappointed her. She said that if she continued getting lucky rolls and the results still remained the same, then Siger 100 had genuinely defeated her. Pencilgon then died completely, giving Siger 100 the victory. The Schwarz-Wolf members celebrated, while Kyogoku said that although Pencilgon had lost, she had managed to force Siger 100 to reveal her trio attack, so she considered it a job well done. Sunraku said that he thought he had seen some kind of image beside the two of them and asked what kind of skill trio was. Kyogoku replied that it was Servant's Trio, synchronized, which allowed a player to wield 2 servant swords as though they were extensions of their own master sword. Sunraku asked whether it created virtual doppelgangers of the user, and Kyogoku confirmed that it did. When the servant swords were positioned correctly, the user could attack at close range and long range simultaneously, just as they had witnessed. When Pencilgon revived, she said that she had wanted to force Siger 100 to use Quartet as well, but she was simply too skilled. Katsuo congratulated Pencilgon on a good game and said that the trio attack was already far too powerful. However, he asked whether Schwarz-Wolf had not been created to kill Lycagon. Apparently, Lycagon had only been defeated by the party consisting of Sunraku, Siger Zero, and Akane. If Schwarz-Wolf had 2 powerful Sigers, should they not have already beaten Lycagon long ago? Sunraku replied that they had only defeated a shadow, although they had still beaten it. Siger Zero then mentioned that her sister had undoubtedly encountered Lycagon several times before, but because the encounters were random, she had never been prepared. She either did not have enough party members with her or had brought the wrong combination of jobs. Now, they are more aware of Lycagon's invisible clones, which was the kind of information they had learned because of Sunraku. However, whenever Siger 100 encountered Lycagon, her party would die before they could properly prepare. Sunraku said that made sense and admitted that if he had not brought Suzaku with him, fighting the invisible clones would have been extremely difficult. They might not even have found a way to use Armageddon. Kyogoku then added that Lycagon only appeared during encounters on moonlit nights, so top-tier players who could only play at night tended to join Team 10 p.m. instead of Schwartz-Wolf. Saiger Zero confirmed that and addressed Kyogoku as Kyogoku. However, she did not seem to like that and said that she wanted Saiger Zero to call her Kyo the Ultimate. She then called Saiger Zero Saiga, which made her somewhat nervous, while Sunraku wondered what was happening. Katsuo said that he knew about top-tier nighttime players joining Team 10 p.m., but Saiger 100 was still incredibly skilled. He said that it would take him several attempts before he could properly handle Lycagon's attacks. According to Kyogoku, just as she had said, Saiger 100 still had openings. She was a master of the sword, but she was not a god. Once she ran out of MP, her abilities would return to the level of an ordinary swordsman. On top of that, controlling 4 swords was far more difficult than they imagined because every movement created an opening, and Kyogoku said that she could exploit each one of those openings. Her companions appeared doubtful when they heard that. She reminded them that she was a player killer who had unlocked her level cap long ago and had already reached level 104. A brief silence followed, and Pencilgon said that Sunraku had already heard Kyogoku's case, so she asked whether he would let her have a chance. Sunraku sarcastically asked what happened to the or what option and said that after hearing Kyogoku boast like that, he already knew she would be beaten within 5 seconds. Katsuo told him not to be so judgmental. In situations like that, sacrificial Lamjo characters were sometimes the ones who killed the final boss. Kyogoku was pleased to hear that at first, but then realized that Katsuo had called her a joke character. Katsuo then asked whether she was an anti-player specialist because he was somewhat curious about her fighting style. Sunraku asked whether Kyogoku genuinely intended to kill Saiger 100, and she replied that she obviously did. She told Sunraku to sit down. She had been brought into Wolfgang to fulfill a specific role, and that was exactly what she intended to do. She then drew one of her swords and said that the opportunity to fight the leader of Schwartz-Wolf had finally arrived, and it was time to go wolf hunting. At that moment, Saiger 100 was restoring her HP, and Kyogoku asked whether she was finished. Saiger 100 told her that she was and asked whether her name in that game was Kyo the Ultimate. Kyogoku laughed and said that now that she thought about it, she had never had the opportunity to fight Saiger 100 seriously, calling her Momo. After saying that, she revealed her 6-fire tail and added that she had been waiting for that opportunity. She even said that the battle ahead of them was going to be extremely exciting. Katsuo was surprised when Kyogoku's tail burst into flames, while Sunraku said that it was probably her serious form. She seemed confident in herself, so he told them to trust her. He sarcastically added that it was impossible for her to lose, while Pencilgon asked what Kyogoku believed her chances of winning were. Kyogoku laughed sarcastically and said that she knew they were mocking her, but she was one of the few players who had uncapped her level limit in the new land. She then apologized, saying that she was not there to follow Saiger 100's wishes, and charged toward her as she spoke. Saiger 100 said that if Kyogoku believed their battle would be anything like real life, then she was dead wrong. At that moment, a servant sword attacked Kyogoku, but she managed to evade it. Something also confused her, while Saiger 100 said that she had studied at the Ryugen school as well and knew how weak someone became when they failed to follow through with their initial step-in. Sunraku carefully watched the two of them, while Kyogoku told Saiger 100 that she understood. A bright light then appeared, and the breakdown of Kyogoku's buffs was revealed. The first was Bloody Ideology, which increased her attack power for several seconds after she received damage, with the amount of the increase depending on how much damage she had taken. The next was Tempestuous Surge, which boosted her AGI and Dex whenever she moved faster than her opponent. The third and final buff was Top Slasher, which increased Agi and Strength when the user was the first party member to attack. With the help of all those buffs, she managed to evade Saiger 100's numerous attacks using her servant swords. Sunraku was surprised when he noticed that Kyogoku had become faster, while Pencilgon did not recognize any of the skills she was using. Meanwhile, Saiger 100 asked whether Kyogoku had obtained those abilities after surpassing level 99. Kyogoku replied that she had, and said that they were called 3-digit skills. On top of that, she also possessed Nine-Tail magic. After saying that, she attacked Saiger 100 with Nine-Tail 6, Oblivion Flame, but Saiger 100 managed to leap away. However, the attack still slightly grazed her armor, which surprised Katsuo. Sunraku said that the only problem was that Kyogoku had already moved close to Saiger 100. She said that their battle was not kendo and used Sorvent's trio, synchronist against Kyogoku. She added that the wonderful thing about that ability was how effective it was in close-range combat. Katsuo was completely shocked that Saiger 100 had immediately brought out her trio attack, while Kyogoku used Blade of the Raging Seas, a sweeping attack that allowed her to parry the clone's attacks. After that, Kyogoku asked whether Saiger 100 thought she had no counter for that ability, while Saiger 100 asked whether she truly believed she did. Saiger 100 then slashed her after saying that, and asked whether she actually considered what she had done a counter. To Kyogoku's surprise, her sword had already developed a crack, and she became concerned about its endurance, realizing that Lost Pegasius had caused it. Pencilgon said that although Kyogoku could block Synchronist, the magical sword would eventually destroy her katana. At the same time, Saiger 100 asked whether Kyogoku could now see that their battle was not a kendo session and tried to attack her with her master sword. Kyogoku blocked it using her own sword. She even smiled, and with a rapid movement of her feet, she escaped Saiger 100's attack, causing her to realize that it was a Ryugen school technique. Kyogoku then used Receding Wave Kata, a powerful slashing attack. She said that Saiger 100 was apparently right, that their battle was not kendo, then took out an item, which surprised Saiger 100. Sunraku asked whether Kyogoku had taken something out, while Pencilgon replied that she could not see it. Meanwhile, Saiger 100 used Sorvent's trio once again. Kyogoku said that she needed to bring out something equally impressive and threw the object she was holding directly at one of Saiger 100's swords. It struck the sword, while Kyogoku told herself that the Sorvent skill Saiger 100 could use depended on how many swords she had prepared. At that moment, she needed 2 Servant swords to use Synchronist. However, the binding birdlime she had thrown onto one of the swords would prevent it from moving for 5 seconds, temporarily removing its status as a servant sword. Because of that, the strongest move Saiger 100 could use was a duo attack, and she knew that she could keep up with that. On top of that, the unique magic spell she had used earlier, Ninetail 6, had failed to land directly, but it created a target wherever it touched an opponent. That target could be struck by any Ninetail attack. She had already placed it on Saiger 100's chest, which meant that she could now unleash a lethal barrage directly at that target. Of course, Saiger 100 had no intention of losing. To Kyogoku's surprise, she used Sorvent Quartet. Kyogoku immediately leaped backward and remained completely shocked. Sunraku and Katsuo reacted the same way. Kyogoku could not believe that Saiger 100 had added 2 more swords and thought that it should have been impossible. She asked whether Saiger 100 had only just drawn them or had been concealing them throughout their battle. At that moment, Saiger 100's servant swords formed a triangular formation, and she sent them flying toward Kyogoku. That quartet attack was called Quad Delta. Kyogoku saw the swords flying toward her and was struck by the tremendous impact of all 3, shocking her companions. Saiger 100's expression showed how seriously she was taking the battle, while her clanmates smiled as they waited for the smoke to clear. When it did, Kyogoku was still standing. Saiger 100 laughed and praised her for enduring the attack at exactly the right moment. She said that if Kyogoku had evaded even slightly later, the attack would have struck more than just her shoulder. Kyogoku agreed and told herself that there was no possibility that attack had been intended for monsters. However, Saiger 100's bluff had been incredibly impressive, so it was no surprise that Schwarzwolf was a top-level clan. Her PvP skills were also exceptionally polished. Saiger 100 said that she still believed Kyogoku had the wrong idea about her. Everyone knew that she had become a master of the sword before the revisions, and PvP skills had been necessary to achieve that. On the sidelines, Katsuo was completely shocked that Saiger 100 had used Quartet, while Sunraku told him not to worry about that and to look at something else. Something was happening to Kyogoku's injured shoulder, and she told herself that because of the damage she had received, her arm had become partially paralyzed, preventing her from using it to wield a sword. She knew that the situation was bad, and that the paralysis would take 10 seconds to disappear. Saiger 100 would never waste an opportunity like that, and was already attacking her. Even worse was something else Kyogoku had noticed. She could sense ominous and malicious forces behind her, which were Katsuo, Sunraku, and Pencilgon, all hoping that she would lose. After boasting so much, she already knew what they would say if she were defeated. Saiger 100 then mockingly asked what was wrong, and Kyogoku decided to use something she had prepared. It was a lethal weapon she had prepared exclusively for Saiger 100. She then said that it was time to end the battle and challenged Kyogoku to charge at her. Kyogoku was worried about her left arm, which was still paralyzed, while blocking the first servant sword Saiger 100 used to attack her. She said to herself that fighting in that condition was difficult. If they continued exchanging attacks, it would be impossible for her to create an opening large enough to strike. Because of that, she thought it was time to target the mark she had left on Saiger 100's chest. That is the only way she can tap into the thing she wants. She even asked whether Saiger 100 remembered the first thing she had done, Ninetales 6, which confused her. Saiger 100 asked whether she meant the unique magic that had grazed her. She guessed that it had left a homing mark on her, but believed she already understood what it did. Kyogoku replied that this was not what she meant. She said that if Saiger 100 had not concealed or reduced the size of her ripe melons, would her attack not have been a direct hit? The leader of Schwarzwolf was stunned when she heard that, while Sunraku became confused. Kyogoku looked as though she had been possessed, with her eyes completely white, and declared that Saiger 100 was wide open. She managed to strike her with Secret Blade Lionfell, alarming the Schwarzwolf members. Even Sunraku was shocked, while Katsuo wondered about the melons being nerfed. Pencilgon asked whether Kyogoku always fought like that, but Saiger Zero could not answer her. Back in the battle of the two, Saiger 100 was furious over what Kyogoku had done because it was a low blow. She could not believe that Kyogoku had attacked her from a real-life angle. Kyogoku laughed and said that she had not expected her tactic to work. She had even heard that Saiger 100 had blew out another bra the other day, which irritated her even more. Kyogoku added by asking whether she wanted to know how many girls at the bathhouse had become jealous of the size of the melons belonging to her and her younger sister, Saiger Zero, causing Saiger 100 to tell her to shut up. She was filled with anger toward Kyogoku at that moment and was also distracted by her utter lack of tact. Kyogoku became irritated when she heard that and asked why Saiger 100 had reduced the size of her melons so much. She had even thought she was playing with her. Saiger 100 then told herself that she needed to focus, while Kyogoku was delighted that she had successfully distracted her. Kyogoku also told herself that Saiger 100 had brought out all four servant swords even though she did not need them, which was merely wasting her magic. With the damage from Lionfell and the effort Saiger 100 was using to endure her panic, this was Kyogoku's opportunity. Out of irritation, Saiger 100 sent two swords toward Kyogoku at the same time, but she leaped to evade them. She also knocked both swords away and continued charging towards Saiger 100. She told her that the feeling in her shoulder had returned and that the real battle was only beginning. After she said that, another one of Saiger 100's swords flew toward her, but she managed to block it, along with the fourth sword that followed. There were no longer any swords standing in her way after that, so she told Saiger 100 that she had no hidden sword left to draw. Perhaps she would use Quintet against her, assuming she could even do that while her swords were scattered throughout the arena. However, before Saiger 100 could do that, Kyogoku said that she would use Ninetales 6 on her again and drive it into her oh-so-bold chest as she prepared to attack. Unfortunately, at that moment, one of Saiger 100's servant swords suddenly stabbed her in the side. Kyogoku was completely shocked, and so were her allies in Wolfgang. The look in Saiger 100's eyes made it seem as though she had planned everything, while Kyogoku wondered where that servant sword had come from. She had just deflected all four of them. Every one of those swords was still moving, and Saiger 100 had not switched to another set. Kyogoku wondered whether it was a fifth sword, while Saiger Zero and Pencilgon were shocked that Saiger 100 had brought out another one. Pencilgon then realized that four swords had never been the limit. She even wondered whether the actual maximum number of servant swords was 6. Saiger 100 said that she had never brought out that many swords against another player before, so she hoped Kyogoku would enjoy it. She then used Servant Septet, causing the swords to form a circle above Kyogoku. She could not believe that the swords had gathered together and realized that deflecting them no longer mattered. She asked whether it was a ranged attack and panicked because she knew nothing about Septet, so she decided to retreat for the moment. Saiger 100 was not concerned and released the Septet attack, which had the code name 7 Sinker. 6 swords descended toward Kyogoku, alarming her, and her body suddenly collapsed onto the ground. Her body felt incredibly heavy at that moment, and she wondered whether gravity was responsible for it. Sunraku then asked whether it was some kind of binding move, and Saiger 100 said that he was correct. She even asked if that attack allowed her to keep up with Lycagon, and told Kyogoku, whom she called Kyo the Ultimate, that the battle was over. Kyogoku refused to accept that, and said that she did not care if she could no longer move because she would struggle until the very end. Saiger 100 sarcastically asked what else she could possibly do. Kyogoku then tried to shout the real-life measurements of Saiger 100's melons, but before she could begin, Saiger 100 personally stabbed her through the back, with eyes filled with rage. Kyogoku died completely from the attack, while the Wolfgang members struggled to hold back their laughter. After Saiger 100's swords fell onto the ground, she was declared the winner. Rebellious asked whether his companions had heard what Kyogoku had said, but Dine Dasher replied that he had not. Because of that, Saiger 100 glared fiercely at Rebellious, while Pencilgon remained in awe after witnessing the Septet attack. She said that she had never imagined Saiger 100 had polished her master of the sword proficiency to such an extent that she could now control 6 servant swords at the same time, so it was completely unexpected. She was no longer certain that Sunraku had any chance of winning. After telling herself that, she noticed something. Katsuo was looking at Sunraku, so she looked toward him as well. She laughed and thought that, for Sunraku, that battle had probably served as the spark that ignited the fuse that will make his competitive drive explode. After that, they began teasing Kyogoku. Pencilgon said that she had known Kyogoku's final ace in the hole would turn out to be sexual harassment. Katsuo sarcastically asked whether manners were only for quitters and said that Kyogoku truly was a player killer, which amazed him. According to Sunraku, they had given Kyoto Mate too much credit, and she appeared to be growing irritated with them. They even added that she was even more problematic than they had imagined and called her the queen of questionable behavior. Kyogoku then said that she had known they would mock her after she lost, but they had not even hesitated to gang up on her. She also knew how her battle had ended, but she believed she held her own pretty well. By the time Saiger 100 used her final servant skill, Kyogoku believed that she had almost completely drained her MP. She even thought that if she had endured just a little longer, she could have won that battle. However, that was simply the kind of person Saiger 100 was, someone who never left an opening. At that moment, Sunraka thought about Saiger 100's MP and remembered that they had discussed it as a potential weakness. He then called out to Saiger 0, who immediately asked how she could help. He asked whether she had any idea how much information her older sister possessed about him. Saiger 0 replied that Saiger 100 naturally knew about Sunraka's encounters with the unique monsters. However, she did not believe that her sister knew very much about Sunraka's fighting style or the weapons and skills he might have. Sunraku then realized that Saiger 0 had not told her sister anything, while Pencilgon said that their victory now depended on Sunraku. If he allowed them to lose, it would create an enormous problem for them. Sunraku said that he understood because they would have to reveal all the secret information they possessed and would become Schwartz-Wolf's errand boys. Katsuo added that Sunraku would also look like an idiot if he lost, and he would mock him for the next 6 months. Sunraku replied that he would mock Katsuo for the next 3 years after watching Saiger 100 instantly kill him. Saiger 0 then called out to Sunraku and told him to do his best against her older sister. Sunraku replied that he obviously would and told her to watch him. They had already come that far, and after watching his allies fight Saiger 100, he had come up with a few ideas. All he needed to do was test them, and he stepped forward to fight. He even greeted Saiger 100, who immediately began thinking about him. She told herself that the first time she had seen Sunraka's name was in a screenshot that had circulated online. He had only recently started playing SLF at the time, yet he had already received Lycagon's mark. Even if she ignored the talking Vorpal bunny that was always with him, the mark alone had been enough to capture her interest. After that, the announcement was made that the first unique monster had been defeated. Weathermon had fallen, and Sunraku had been one of the players responsible. He then formed a party and defeated the second unique monster, Katarnid of the Abyss. Worst of all, whether it had only been a shadow or not, he had defeated Lycagon the Night Slayer, the one and only Lycagon, and she had no idea how Sunraku had managed to do it. Because of that, Saiger 100 thought that fighting Sunraku might allow her to catch a glimpse of his secret. After that, she told Sunraku that she would be honest and admitted that she was interested in him, which he said was an honor. Saiger 100 told herself that, to her, the battle meant far more than clan politics. She admitted that she needed to discover what Sunraku knew about Lycagon, or uncover all the information Wolfgang was hiding from them. She would obtain it after defeating him in a fair battle. Sunraku said that was fine with him, but before they began, he had a quick proposal for Saiger 100, which caught her attention. Pencilgon also wondered what it was, and Sunraku said that this would be the final battle. Because of that, he suggested allowing each of them to use one healing item during the fight. Saiger 100 and her younger sister were shocked when they heard that. Sunraku clarified that Saiger 100 could drink one MP restoring mana potion, while he could drink one HP restoring potion. Only one each, no more and no less. He was certain that Saiger 100 possessed a potion capable of completely restoring her MP with a single drink. An HP potion would also benefit him, but since his maximum HP was already low, he believed it was an excellent deal for her. Pencilgon tried to stop Sunraku, while Saiger 100 said that the offer was far too favorable for her. Sunraku admitted that he obviously had something planned, but asked whether learning more about each other was not part of the enjoyment of PvP. He also asked whether a confident PvP player who was a master of the sword would not gladly accept that offer any day. On the sidelines, Katsuo was surprised that Sunraku was allowing Saiger 100 to cover He-1 weaknesses, while Kyogoku said that it was fascinating but wondered whether Sunraku would be alright. An irritated Pencilgon asked why Sunraku always needed to do things like that on his own. Even Saiger 0 wondered why Sunraku would make such an offer. Saiger 100 told herself that, as a master of the sword, she had fought many players and believed that she had a general idea of what Sunraku was thinking. At that moment, she saw her younger sister, and Rei became part of the equation in her mind. Sunraku had made Rei fall for him so deeply that she could no longer contain herself, and Saiger 100 accepted his offer. However, she was not accepting it as Saiger 100. As Momo Saiga, Rei's older sister, she wanted to thoroughly discover just how skilled Sunraku truly was. That was when the battle between Saiger 100 of Schwarzwolf and Sunraku of Wolfgang then officially began. Saiger 100 immediately began her attack and warned Sunraku to watch out. She sent her servant swords after him as well, but Sunraku effortlessly evaded them. He was delighted and said that it was now worth attempting what he wanted to try. After saying that, he drew his double Dekusrum and assumed his stance. Saiger 0 was confused because it was not Sunraku's usual stance, while Saiger 100 could not believe that Sunraku wanted to test something against her. She even asked whether he had a unique skill that he wanted to try on her as she prepared to pierce him alongside her servant's swords. Sunraku carefully observed everything and evaded Saiger 100's initial attack. However, two more swords came at him from above. He evaded the different servant's swords as well, moving so smoothly that he appeared to be dancing. The Saiger sisters and Kyogoku were shocked when they saw it. Meanwhile, Sunraku noticed something strange. Saiger 100 had managed to graze him slightly, while Kyogoku and Saiger 0 could not believe the way he was moving. He then remembered a particular line and recited it, saying, "Quell the flames within your mind, and take control of the river within you." Kyogoku and Saiger 100 became even more shocked when they heard it, and Saiger 100 realized that it was the philosophy behind the Ryugen sword style. In the middle of everything, Katsuo and Pencilgon had no idea what was happening, while Sunraku said that it was his first time trying it against another player, but he was beginning to like it. From that point onward, he would roleplay as Fugaku Ryugen himself. Fugaku Ryugen was the strongest there ever was. He had possessed beast-like instincts since childhood, allowing him to predict his opponent's movements and strike them with his weapon before they could attack. That was Fugaku's almost surreal approach to combat. However, all living things were destined to fade over time, and when he realized that, he changed his tactics. Drawing from his countless experiences, Fugaku used his perfectly polished instincts to read his opponents. He could see where they were going before they even reached that point and counter them using the minimum amount of movement. It was truly the pinnacle of a master's art, which Sunraku was currently imitating and using against Saiger 100, allowing him to keep up with the simultaneous attacks of her servant swords. He truly resembled Fugaku in the way he evaded them, which irritated Saiger 100. According to Sunraku, he was obviously only imitating Fugaku's entire style for the moment, but it was working extremely well in the battle. He merely observed his opponent's stance, adjusted himself accordingly, and watched how everything unfolded. To accomplish that, he watched Saiger 100's movements and skills while focusing his mind and body entirely on controlling himself. As he continued evading her attacks, he began to understand something. Hyogoku could not believe how closely Sunraku's movements resembled those of her grandfather. While Saiger 100 said that Sunraku was doing more than merely imitating him and asked where he had learned the Ryugen style. Sunraku jokingly replied that she could call it a correspondence course that he had paid for in full. Saiger 100 could not accept that answer and became even more irritated, showing it by attacking Sunraku from above with the cat sword. Sunraku mockingly said that he had developed resistance to surprise overhead gang-up punishments, which confused her, while Katsuo thought about the Ryugen style. Pencilgon then mentioned that Sunraku had changed his fighting style, which Katsuo agreed with, saying that his evasive movements had become more polished. He was about to say something else, but the scene returned to Sunraku, who said that role-playing as Fugaku definitely packed a punch. However, now that he was testing it against another person, it was not a perfect match for the fighting approach he preferred. Observing Saiger 100's skills and movements was fine, but it was no different from fighting an NPC opponent. His opponent was a real person, and at that moment, he put away his Dekusrum. Saiger 100 wondered why, while Sunraku added that he would observe his opponent a little more as he activated Levin Trigger Hazard. He combined it with Moment Sight, leaving Kyogoku staring in disbelief. After that, Sunraku rapidly charged towards Saiger 100 while effortlessly evading her servant swords. When one landed in front of him, he used its handle as a foothold to leap towards Saiger 100, which appeared to surprise her. The Schwarzwolf members were also shocked by Sunraku's incredible speed and asked what kind of buff he was using. Even Katsuo and Pencilgon were equally impressed. Back in the battle, Saiger 100 laughed and said that fighting Sunraku was enjoyable. It seemed that she could no longer afford to waste time sizing him up, so she used Sorvin Solo, Primal Slash. However, Sunraku avoided it with a backflip. He even activated Flip Food while still in midair and charged towards Saiger 100 again. To Sunraku's surprise, she used Sorvin's Trio, Synchronist, and two clones immediately appeared beside her. Rebellious was shocked that Saiger 100 had used two Sorvent skills consecutively, while Dindasher said that she had truly become serious. Sunraku laughed when Saiger 100 used Synchronist because he had already expected it. She knew that she could refill her MP, so she was freely unleashing her Sorvent skills. They were moves he had already seen her use, and he thought about how a true master of the sword would evade them. He decided to observe Saiger 100's movements carefully and successfully slipped through the area beyond the reach of the clone's simultaneous slashes. He even tightened his grip on the Dekusrum and leaped towards Saiger 100 once again, forcing her to retreat. Katsuo was shocked that Sunraku had managed to escape, while Saiger 100 was beginning to look concerned. Sunraku said that even though he was only performing an abstract imitation, his Fugaku roleplay was working remarkably well. He was using only the minimum amount of movement necessary to evade, and every movement connected directly to his next action. At that moment, the 10 seconds of his Levin Trigger Hazard expired, and he retreated. If he continued using it, the combination of self-inflicted damage and the full effect would reduce his HP to 1, and he could only restore his HP once. Saiger 100 found his action strange, and wondered why Sunraku had retreated. She even asked whether that was the end of his offensive. Sunraku asked whether Saiger 100 was joking and said that they had not even finished the first round. At the same time, he put away his Dekusrum and drew a new weapon. It had been created by Belak herself and was called the Crimson Sea Fistbands. which he used to punch one of Saiger 100's servant swords. The sword was sent flying, leaving Asagiri unable to believe what she had seen, while Dine Dasher was surprised by Sun Raku's fist weapon. At that moment, Sun Raku continued punching away every sword that attacked him and explained that the bands reduced the damage he received while he was in the middle of an attacking motion. Because of that, each sword only dealt 10 damage to him. On top of that, whenever a clash occurred, or in any situation where he and Saiger 100 damaged each other simultaneously, the gauge of the Crimson Sea fist bands would fill. Katsuo was shocked when he learned that, and was so impressed that he wanted a pair of his own. Meanwhile, Pencilgon realized that the weapon had a skill that could be unlocked. At the same time, Sunraka thought about their restriction on items and asked whether healing through an accessory was allowed. He was referring to the Goblin Doll, which continuously restored HP, although only in tiny amounts. Sunraku said that he could not rely on its regeneration, but since he had already bought it, he might as well use it. It was then shown that the accessory restored only 1 HP. After that, Sunraku resumed his charge towards Saiger 100 and used Formula Drift, instantly moving behind her. Kyogoku was shocked when she saw that, while Saiger 100 sarcastically called it a nice attempt. She said that Sunraku had no idea how deeply the Ryugen style had been ingrained in her, then attacked him with a slash. When Sunraku saw it, he punched Saiger 100's master sword and successfully deflected it away. He told her that they were not playing Kendo, but Shangri-La Frontier. Saiger 100 agreed and activated something in her hands. She struck Sunraku with Electro Stun, which hit his Crimson Sea fist bands. That alarmed him, so he immediately retreated. He asked what had happened and noted that although it had barely dealt any damage, it had stunned him severely. He wondered whether it was some kind of close-range stun magic, and said that if it had landed cleanly, his body would have become completely frozen and he would have lost. Saiger 100 praised him for reading the attack, and said that she could tell Sunraku was the kind of opponent she could not allow to get close. On top of that, a prolonged battle would also be a bad idea, so she put away her servant swords. Sunraku wondered why, then saw Saiger 100 draw a new set of swords. He realized that she had been switching between different sets, while Saiger 100 explained that when the 5 swords she had drawn were used by a party against the same target, they triggered their own stat boosts. Collectively, they were called the Imperial 5. There was the Imperial Cutlass, which increased Dex, the Falchion, which increased Vit, the Main Gauche, which increased Tech, the Rapier, which increased Agi, and the Spada, which increased Strength. Normally, several players were needed to activate those effects. However, as a master capable of controlling servant swords, she could apply all those buffs to herself simultaneously. Sunraku could not believe that Saiger 100 had obtained several different buffs at once and asked whether that was the second configuration of her master of the sword setup. He even said that she was becoming far too much like a final boss. However, he found it strange that she had revealed her ace in the hole so early, so he mockingly asked whether she was beginning to panic because of him. The gauge of his fist bands had already reached its maximum at that moment. He told Saiger 100 that he did not mean to ruin her fun, but he had not even revealed half of what he possessed yet, showing the bands to somewhat be transforming. Saiger 100 replied that, in that case, she could not wait to see the rest. Sunraku added that Saiger 100 was clearly proud of her Imperial 5. However, his Crimson Sea fist bands were also impressive now that their ability had been unlocked by filling the gauge. After he said that, Saiger 100 charged at him with the full force of her swords. Katsuo asked what was happening to Sunraku's bands, which were floating around his hands. Pencilgon also found it strange because they appeared to leave Sunraku wide open, but wondered whether that was simply what happened when the gauge was activated. At the same time, Saiger 100 told Sunraku that he seemed confident in himself. However, now that the Imperial 5 had applied their buffs to her stats, she was no longer the person she had been before. After saying that, she rapidly leaped around Sunraku and got behind him with the help of the Agi increase from the Imperial Rapier. Katsuo was impressed, while Sunraku immediately turned towards Saiger 100. He even managed to leap away from her rapier thrust, while she prepared to use the Main Gauche against him. She sent it flying behind him while 2 other swords attacked him from the front. Because of that, Sunraku once again role-played as Fugaku Ryugen and managed to evade the two swords, but then remembered that there was still another one behind him. Saiger 100 attacked him with the cutlass while simultaneously slashing at him with her master sword, but Sunraku evaded both attacks as well. Saiger 100 then realized that even after she had thrown all of that at him, he still had not used whatever ability the Crimson Sea Fistbands had unlocked. She had assumed that the unlocked effect was similar to what Sunraku had used earlier, reducing the damage he received while also granting him a defensive boost. However, he was not allowing himself to be hit at all. That made Saiger 100 wonder whether his damage reduction effect had ended and the new ability was more attack-oriented. Perhaps he was aiming to end the battle with a single strike. If that was the case, she would continue pelting Sunraku with consecutive combination attacks from every direction. She would not give him even a single moment to retaliate, and she knew that he would quickly be defeated as he continued running away. Asagiri and Dine Dasher were pleased when they saw that because they both assumed Sunraku was beginning to struggle. Rebellious, however, thought the exact opposite. Their leader had already strengthened her stats with the Imperial 5, yet Sunraku was still evading everything she threw at him. He wondered how many people in Schwarzwolf, or even in the entire game, could accomplish something like that. He also realized that Sunraku needed that level of performance to fight the Colossi. Saiger 100 said that she was tired of all Sunraku's movements and asked whether he was a professional acrobat in real life. Sunraku told Saiger 100 not to be ridiculous. He needed movements like those if he wanted to evade his way to victory in a battle against Lycagon. However, despite sounding confident, he told himself that Saiger 100 was extremely difficult to fight. She had all the buffs that would normally require several parties to activate, yet she was not simply trying to overpower him through brute force. Every one of her movements was precise, and surviving against her for an extended period would be difficult. He then decided to try something. He leaped backward as he said that, and Saiger 100 attacked again. She personally tried to attack Sunraku from behind while sending one of her swords toward him from the front. Sunraku immediately realized that it was a pincer attack, while Saiger 100 said that if Sunraku tried to attack her from that position, her servant sword would strike him directly. In response to the pincer attack, Sunraku used his fistbands as shields. Saiger 100 said that it was the only correct move he could make, but even though the fistbands reduced the damage he received, a pincer attack enhanced by a STR buff would still be enough to kill him. However, she could not even finish speaking because Sunraku had taken no damage at all. Saiger 100 was completely shocked when she realized that, while Sunraku laughed at her. He said that this was the ability unlocked by the Crimson Sea Fistbands. He added that the fistbands absorbed the damage he received and completely canceled it out. As he explained that, he drew his whale lore Moonblade Gold Sheen, surprising Saiger 100. Sunraku slashed her with Gold Sheen and said that she had fallen for his little trick like a house of cards. The attack injured Saiger 100, shocking Katso and Pencilgon, as well as Asagiri and Dine Dasher. The leader of Schwarzwolf was even sent flying, and her falchion fell to the ground. Fortunately for her, she had a VIT boost. Sunraku said that he felt as though the attack had been a critical hit, so he could not believe that it had dealt so little damage. He then praised Saiger 100's Imperial 5. At the same time, Saiger 100 thought about how Sunraku had lured her into a range where he was guaranteed to hit her. Alternatively, perhaps Sunraku had lured her mind into falling for his feint. She told herself that Sunraku had deliberately made her believe that he was unable to defend himself. Because of that, he had hidden the damage-canceling trick while continuing to evade her Imperial 5 attacks. If Sunraku had made even one mistake while doing that, he would have died instantly. Nevertheless, he had successfully carried out his plan, causing her to make an ill-advised strike. She called it the intelligence and confidence of a seasoned player killer. After that, Saiger 100 said that she hated to admit it, but it was true. Sunraku had not only helped defeat 2 of the 7 Colossi, but also Lycagon's shadow form itself. Saiger 100 was about to continue, but Sunraku interrupted and asked whether she was going to say that she would not fall for the same strategy twice. He added that now that Saiger 100 knew what the fistbands could do, she would be able to devise numerous countermeasures against them. He had expected to gain even more than that from her. He also said that Saiger 100 truly acted like a boss enemy whenever she brought out new swords, buffs, and skills, but he was beginning to understand her. The power of a master of the sword depended heavily on her weapons, and since Saiger 100 kept bringing out new swords, Sunraku feared that she might eventually run out of them. Saiger 100 laughed and asked whether that was what Sunraku believed, then said that she had something to tell him. As it happened, she possessed a total of 35 swords inside her inventory, which shocked Sunraku. Furthermore, including the Imperial 5, she had only shown Sunraku 13 of those swords so far. Sunraku said that Saiger 100 must have filled her entire inventory with swords and asked how many different battle strategies she possessed. Katsuo asked whether Saiger 100 still had more than half of her swords remaining, while Pencilgon said that every one of them was high-end equipment. Sunraku appeared to laugh like a madman and said that he had already known that, causing Katsuo and Pencilgon to call him a liar. At the same time, Saiger 100 asked what fancy act Sunraku intended to perform next and said that she hoped it had something to do with Lycagon. Sunraku replied that he might accept that request, and in exchange, he would give Saiger 100 a little information, which caught her attention. He asked the leader of Schwarzwolf whether she had noticed that Lycagon's mark on his body looked different from before, and Saiger 100 replied that the change was rather obvious. Sunraku said that he would not explain how it had happened, but the mark had been upgraded into a contusion for an unpleasant reason. It was no longer merely a mark, and he could now wear armor over the contusion for 3 minutes. If he exceeded that limit by even 1 second, the armor would break and disappear permanently with no way to repair it, which shocked the Schwarzwolf members. Sunraku added that the contusion also resisted all buffs and debuffs. It was almost the same as the original mark, so he was certain that Saiger 100 understood what that meant, but for him, it was a greater problem than anything else. Saiger 100 wondered what he meant, and Sunraku drew the Shikatsu breaker. At first, Saiger 100 thought it was a wand, but then she realized that it was a sword hilt. Even Pencilgon and Katsuo were surprised when they saw it. Sunraku explained that instead of a blade, the handle had a crystal attached to it, and that crystal was the key. He said that the crystal had come from Gold Hunine the Inexhaustible and carried her curse. Saiger 100 was completely shocked when she learned that, as were the members of her clan and Wolfgang. Sunraku then stabbed himself with the weapon, shocking Saiger 100 even further. Cracks began spreading across Sunraku's body, and he also stabbed his leg. Saiger 100 then asked what Sunraku was holding and what he was attempting to accomplish with it. Sunraku explained that Shikatsu, or Bakatsu, was an ancient method of fortune-telling in which bones were burned and cracked. Then the cracks were interpreted to predict the future. What he was doing was breaking his own body to predict what was coming. He would accomplish that by using Lycagon's contusion and overriding it with Gold Hunine's curse. One curse would cancel out the other, and for the next 5 consecutive minutes, the contusion would be completely offline. As he explained everything, a black aura began emerging from his body. He added that he believed they were finished sizing each other up. Because of that, they should abandon all the stupid little formalities and play a game of chicken. Whoever burned out first would lose. Saiger 100 was delighted to hear that, and sarcastically asked which one of them was truly the boss. Sunraku replied that now, at last, he could extract every last ounce of strength from Saiger 100. He said that it was time to party as he drew his Whalelore Moonblade Netherlight. Saiger 100 was surprised to learn that Sunraku could cancel out Lycagon's contusion, while on the sidelines, Rebellious asked what the black effect surrounding him was. Asagiri said that she had never seen it before, while Dine Dasher observed that it was different from the high-speed movement Sunraku had used earlier. On Wolfgang's side, Katsuo seemed displeased and somewhat jealous that Sunraku had a second form, while Pencilgon said that it truly made her wonder which of the two was the real boss. Back in the battle, Sunraku said that he was finished being passive and that it was time to fight with style. After saying that, his Whalelore Moonblade Netherlight transformed into something resembling a combination of a sickle and a sword, surprising Saiger 100. Sunraku added that to make it work, he could consume either HP or MP to change its form, taking of 10. On top of that, he activated the combination of Levin Trigger Hazard and Moment Sight once again. He said that thanks to the full effect, He could cast it again after only a short time. He was going even faster now and charged towards Saiger 100 while evading her attacks. Her swords could not even hit him at all. Saiger 100 laughed at that moment and said that Sunraku had impressed her with what he had done. She even asked how many unique abilities he actually hit on him. Sunraku replied that he would tell her if she managed to defeat him. She leaped away and sent one of her swords to attack him. Several more swords followed, along with her master sword itself. Fortunately, Sunraku managed to evade and block every one of them, which irritated Saiger 100. She could not believe that Sunraku had become even faster and wondered how many buffs he had applied to himself. Sunraku mockingly asked whether Saiger 100 truly thought she could defeat Lycagon if she could not even keep up with him. He added that Lycagon would beat her down before she could even assemble a party. As he said that, he managed to deliver a critical strike directly to Saiger 100's chest. She became irritated by Sunraku's speed, while he was delighted that his attack had become a critical strike. Sunraku then told himself that he could transform Netherlight without his contusion interfering with it. However, if he needed to spend MP or HP every time he transformed it, then he might as well use an ordinary weapon instead. Because of that, he wondered why Netherlight had been designed to transform in the first place. The answer was another buff provided by Netherlight. Only when he added the Atlanticus effect did the weapon reveal its true potential. Until that moment, Netherlight was largely wasted on him because the Atlanticus effect would get cancelled out by the contusion. However, now that he was cancelling the contusion through his Shikatsu Breaker skill, that obstacle was gone, and he landed another critical strike on Saiger 100. Asagiri could not believe what she was seeing, while Dine Dasher could not accept that Sunraku was successfully evading the servant swords. At the same time, Sunraku was about to explain what the Atlanticus effect provided, but he noticed something and suddenly retreated. The 10 seconds of his Levin trigger hazard had expired, so he deactivated it. It had been worth it because he had managed to land 2 critical strikes. When Saiger 100 noticed the 10-second duration, she realized that it was the skill's limit. If not, then Sunraku probably suffered some kind of penalty whenever he exceeded 10 seconds. Whichever one was true, she had been waiting for Levin trigger hazard to end. The moment Sunraku stopped using it, he would become an enormous target for her, so she prepared to use Septet, which Sunraku noticed. Saiger 100 then released Sorvent Septet, causing Saiger 0 and Kyogoku to become worried. Kyagaku even warned Sunraku that he would be petrified if the attack struck him. However, Sunraku merely grinned and said that it was finally time for her to use it against him. He then activated the Atlanticus effect and launched an attack from Netherlight towards Saiger 100's 6 swords. The attack struck the rapier and knocked it out of the formation, leaving Saiger 100 unable to believe that Sunraku had launched a long-range strike. Pencilgon was also shocked when she saw it, and just as Septet's power began to activate, it suddenly stopped. Rebellious was surprised, while Sunraku was delighted to discover that Septet would not activate if he disrupted its formation. On the other hand, Pencilgon wondered about Sunraku's flying slash and asked herself whether it was similar to the attack produced by Asagiri's Kaiman Hamon. It was then revealed that the Atlanticus effect allowed its user to launch a long-range slashing attack for every critical strike they landed against an opponent whose level was higher than their own. Sunraku told himself that determining whether Atlanticus would work in that battle had been a coin toss. The effect required his opponent to be at a higher level than him. However, both he and Saiger 100 were level 99 extend, so numerically, they were equal. To determine whether the effect would activate, he first tested Goldsheen's crystallization debuff because he knew that it used the same activation condition. When he tried it, it appeared not to work, so he assumed that the game treated them as being at the same level. However, he then noticed something. Although the crystallization effect itself could not be applied to other players, its activation condition had still been triggered. On top of that, because Saiger 100's level-down build had strengthened some of her internal stats beyond his own, the game treated her as being at a higher level. After that, Sunraku transformed his weapon into its rapier form and appeared to fire something from it, alarming Saiger 100. The attack nearly struck her, and she realized that Sunraku's strike also changed depending on the weapon's form. In an instant, Sunraku appeared beside her and told her that she was wide open. Saiger 100 could not accept that Sunraku's gameplay skills were overwhelming her, and she asked whether that level of ability was truly necessary to defeat the 7 Colossi. Sunraku continued mocking Saiger 100 and said that the maxed-out master of the sword job was apparently not that impressive after all. He said that he could defeat a Goliath like Saiger 100 using nothing more than a base-level job, and he would prove it. Saiger 100 became furious when she heard that, and it was as though the image before her suddenly changed. Sunraku was standing directly in front of her, but instead of him, she caught a glimpse of Lycagon. Because of that, she vowed to defeat Lycagon as she swung her sword towards Sunraku. He was shocked and used both of his swords to block Saiger 100's attack. He could not believe it because that had been his best opportunity to end the battle, yet he was now the one being forced to defend. He even wondered whether he had chickened out and whether Saiger 100 had caused it. Saiger 100 was thoroughly enjoying their battle, and at that moment, Sunraku realized something that appeared to surprise him. He realized that Saiger 100 was the same kind of player as he was. He said that the most important thing for a player was not their skill or their powerful weapons and armor. It was all about what is inside of them, something no one else could ever reach. The passion a player needed was something that shone even brighter than the sun. He added that the swords Saiger 100 held and every one of her servant swords were infused with the passion she had poured into SLF, along with the results of an entire year of hardship she had devoted to the game. At that moment, Saiger 0 appeared to want to say something to her older sister, while Saiger 100 declared that no matter what happened, she would prove to the world that she could defeat Sunraku. She knew that doing so would eventually lead her to Lycagon, and if she could connect that victory to Lycagon the Night Slayer, she would give everything she had to achieve it. After saying that, she asked Sunraku whether he would allow her to unleash something. Momo Saiga, Saiger 100 in SLF, said that she had initially started playing the game for the most casual of reasons. Many people had been talking about it, so she decided to try it. As far as she was concerned, if it could entertain her for even a week, that would have been enough. However, one encounter changed how she felt about the entire game, and that was when she met Lycagon the Night Slayer. It was not because of the fear she inspired or even the frustration of losing to her. It was simply an intense curiosity. She even wondered whether it had been love at first sight, but she immediately realized that it was not. If it was not love, she asked herself why Lycagon fascinated her so much. Whatever it was, Lycagon filled her entire body with fierce determination, and she once again vowed to defeat her. When her sword struck Sunraku's 2 swords, he was sent flying far away. However, he still managed to land on his feet. The entire Schwarzwolf clan was shocked when they saw that, and so was the whole Wolfgang clan. Meanwhile, Saiger 100 told Sunraku that she was thoroughly enjoying their battle. Sunraku laughed because he realized that Saiger 100 was a player with a kind of burning passion inside her. It was something he always saw in the greatest players, such as Sylvia. At that moment, Saiger 100 once again asked whether he would allow her to unleash something. Sunraku wondered what it was, but agreed while charging toward her. She met him with her rapier, which he blocked using one of his swords. He thought that up to that point, he had only managed to land 3 painful strikes on Saiger 100. All of them had been critical hits, and he was certain that they had taken a large portion of her HP. In the middle of that, one of the servant swords nearly struck him. He told himself that the only problem was how difficult it was to break through the servant swords. If he tried to force an opening, he would undoubtedly get hurt. Even so, it was obvious that he was getting closer and closer to a breakthrough. Even when he approached Saiger 100, she showed no sign of trying to use Electro Stun. In fact, Saiger 100 had stopped casting servant magic and was keeping the number of swords she used to a minimum. That told him that Saiger 100 was almost out of MP. He believed she was already itching to drink her MP restoring potion. That was the moment and the opportunity he had been waiting for, and as he said that, he activated the Lapistella cloak. It was then explained that potion-type healing items needed to be consumed to activate their effects, which would leave Saiger 100 completely open. Saiger 0 realized that Sunraku intended to use that moment to finish her sister. Sunraku said that Saiger 100 had truly fallen into his strategy and that creating a wall with her servant swords would not help her. After saying that, he used a teleportation skill and appeared directly behind her. However, Instead of drinking the MP restoring potion, Saiger 100 crushed it with her hand, completely shocking Sunraku. By that point, he had already appeared behind her, and could not believe that Saiger 100 had simply shattered the MP potion. He thought that he no longer had time to consider it and needed to attack. Meanwhile, Saiger 100 grinned and asked whether Sunraku was attempting a teleportation move because his eyes had already revealed where he intended to appear. As she said that, electricity began gathering around her hand. Sunraku noticed it and immediately tried to evade. However, Saiger 100 still used Electro Stun and managed to strike Sunraku's leg. He was shocked and could not believe that Saiger 100 had chosen that exact moment to cast a spell. He even accused her of pretending to have run out of MP, but then realized that made no sense. Saiger Zero then explained that her older sister had used an accessory to eliminate the drinking motion, causing everyone to fall silent. Sunraku was shocked when he heard that, while Saiger Zero added that the rings her sister wore allowed her to skip drinking directly from the bottle. She could simply shatter the potion to receive its effects, which surprised Sunraku even more. He realized that when Saiger 100 had drunk an MP potion during the break, she had only been putting on an act for him. Saiger 100 said that the greatest weakness of the Master of the Sword job was how much MP it consumed. Because of that, most players would try to exploit the opening created whenever she restored her MP. She even asked whether Sunraku had truly believed that she would not find a solution to that problem. Sunraku could not accept that he had misread Saiger 100 because his proposal regarding healing items had become completely useless and had even helped his opponent. Pencilgon said that this was precisely why they had prohibited healing in the first place. She was extremely irritated with Sunraku at that moment, and even pointed out that his knowledge of SLF was so skewed that he sometimes seemed like a beginner. Saiger Zero said that they could have warned him beforehand if he had only told them about his plans. Sunraku told himself that taking Electro Stun directly through his legs had left him unable to move or fight. However, he realized that he still had a way to continue fighting, especially now that minimal movement had become essential. It was time to use his Fugaku roleplay style. He would carefully observe the movements of Saiger 100's swords and hold out until his mobility returned to normal. At that moment, Saiger 100 began reciting several words, which surprised Sunraku. Her chant mentioned the darkened sky and an iron hammer of judgment that would descend from above. Sunraku realized that it was a spell, and an extremely lengthy one at that. He knew what that meant because he had witnessed Saiger Zero use Armageddon. The longer the spell chant, the larger and more powerful the spell would be. Pencilgon said that Saiger 100 truly was not holding back. She was taking advantage of Sunraku's inability to attack while stunned and attempting to finish him with a long chant magic spell. Saiger 100's chant even described it as pure and extreme violence. Sunraku could not believe that Saiger 100 had memorized extended chants just like her younger sister. Perhaps he had only been fooling himself, but he decided to use a healing potion as well, since he probably would not have another opportunity to use it later. However, it failed because of Fool Arcanum, which angered him so much that he smashed the potion against the ground. Saiger 100 continued chanting, while Sunraku considered whether he should try to interrupt her or evade the attack. However, he realized that neither option would work because of the condition of his legs. If he tried to fight, the magic would strike him directly and kill him. However, he suddenly came up with an idea involving magic, as Saiger 100 mentioned lightning in her chant, causing Katsuo to warn Sunraku. Sunraku then pulled something out, which slightly distracted Saiger 100. It was Sunraku's shield, Dissipator. Katsuo was shocked because Sunraku's HP would not be enough if he tried to block the attack with it. Pencilgon said that she had never heard of that shield before and pointed out that if Momo launched a full-powered spell at Sunraku, she did not believe a buckler could withstand it. Sunraku said that he had forgotten he even possessed it, and that canceling his contusion apparently offered more benefits than merely restoring the Atlanticus effect. At last, it was time for Dissipator to take center stage and experience glory as a re-legacy weapon. As she finished her spell, Saiger 100 told herself that Sunraku truly continued to impress her. She did not know what kind of shield he possessed, but the attack she was about to use was her most powerful one, and Sunraku should not underestimate her. When she completed the chant, An enormous sphere of lightning appeared before her, and she unleashed Violence Thunder, the lengthy spell she had chanted in front of Sunraku. In the next scene, the story returned to the past at Visash's forge. Sunraku asked whether the Shikatsu breaker truly allowed him to cancel the contusion, and Visash replied that he would teach him how to use it later. Sunraku was delighted that the time had finally come to unleash Netherlight's full power, while Amul said that she could not wait to see it. However, Blight told Sunraku to wait because there was something he had forgotten. Sunraku asked what she meant, and Blight replied that Netherlight was not the only thing he could benefit from by sealing off the contusion. She reminded him not to forget what else she had done. By sealing off the contusion, Sunraku would also be able to access everything the Dissipator Shield was capable of doing. The scene then returned to the present, and Sunraku told himself that his legs were completely numb, so all he could do was maintain his stance. Because of that, he was placing all his hopes on Dissipator, which was probably the only thing that could allow him to survive Saiger 100's attack. At that moment, she unleashed Violence Thunder upon him, and he prepared himself to withstand its impact. He saw lightning filling the entire sky, while Katsuo asked what it was. Saiger 100 said that it was the most powerful blast she possessed, and a shield as small as the one Sunraku was holding could never block it, especially now that she had completed the entire chant. Sunraku wondered where the lightning strike would actually hit. He could not use his legs to react in time, but then he noticed something. He still had a way to defend himself because his super speed combination of Levin Trigger Hazard and Moment Sight was available again, with Full Arcanum having reduced its recast time by half. He activated both skills, knowing that they would compensate for his paralysis at least slightly. All he needed to do was intercept the instantaneous burst of light Saiger 100 had unleashed. He saw the attack approaching him from the front, but it suddenly leaped around, and in an instant, the lightning was behind him. He was completely shocked when he saw that, while Saiger 100 grinned from ear to ear. However, contrary to what she expected, Sunraku immediately turned around with the help of his super speed combination. He faced the lightning strike and said that it was time to demonstrate what a re-legacy weapon could truly do as the shield began transforming. Sunraku had activated Exceed Charge Convert, and he received the full force of the lightning. Saiger 100 could not believe that Sunraku had managed to react to the attack, while he did everything he could to defend himself. He caught the lightning with Dissipator and appeared to trap it inside the shield. The people watching from the sidelines could not see what was happening because of the lightning's overwhelming brightness, while Saiger 100 stared in disbelief at what Sunraku had accomplished. Her allies could not believe it either, and Saiger Zero even asked what Sunraku had done. In a brief flashback, Blight explained that Dissipator contained an Atlanticus lepnorum mirror bone. When Sunraku used it, the shield would release the bone and expose it completely. According to Sunraku, this allowed it to absorb magic and convert it into its own power. That was Dissipator's re-legacy Exceed Charge, and its type was called Convert. After that, Sunraku activated Enchant Brimstone and said that it had boosted all his stats. He then laughed at Saiger 100 and mockingly thanked her for adding yet another layer of buffs to his build. Saiger 100 was shocked when she learned that, and so was her younger sister. Katsuo was surprised that all the visual effects produced by Sunraku's skills and equipment were beginning to blend together. At the same time, Sunraku leaped towards Saiger 100, alarming her. In an instant, he attacked, but the leader of Schwarz-Wolf managed to block it. Sunraku mockingly asked how it felt to have her supposedly guaranteed killing attack, Violence Thunder, blocked. Saiger 100 commented on Sunraku's appearance and asked whether he was some kind of monster. Sunraku wondered what she meant, and suddenly changed his equipment in the middle of the battle, surprising Saiger 100. He showed her his fish head appearance and said that he was a grilled salmon. Saiger 100 appeared disgusted, causing Sunraku to grin and tell her that she was wide open as he activated a teleportation skill. He suddenly appeared behind her, and she seemed to realize what was about to happen. Sunraku effortlessly slashed Saiger 100 across the back, causing the entire Schwarz-Wolf clan to become concerned for her. Sunraku was delighted that he had surprised their leader using the fish head, which had also concealed his line of sight and prevented her from seeing where he intended to teleport. He even asked whether it was not a perfect strategy. Katsuo said that it was the dumbest idea ever, although the attack Sunraku had performed with it was good. He believed that Sunraku's paralysis had already disappeared and that he could now beat Saiger 100 with the help of his additional buffs. Pencilgon said that it would not be that easy, which confused Katsuo. Meanwhile, Sunraku changed his equipment back to his normal appearance and said that, from that point onward, he would keep Levin Trigger Hazard active. He even told Saiger 100 to prepare herself for a relentless barrage of attacks. Pencilgon said that Saiger 100 was not merely a master of the sword. She had obtained that job before it was nerfed in an update, and she knew better than anyone how to fight her way out of a hole. Saiger 100 appeared to become more serious at that moment, while Katsuo asked whether Pencilgon was saying that the master of the sword job had been nerfed. Pencilgon confirmed that it had and explained that it belonged to the upper echelon of jobs. It could be obtained by perfecting a player's sword skills and placing third or higher in an NPC-run sword fighting tournament 5 times. She explained that completing those conditions unlocked the quest through which the job could be obtained. However, those were the conditions after the update. Originally, a player needed to win the tournament 10 times, which shocked Katsuo and made him ask how difficult that had been. Pencilgon said that, at the time, Master of the Sword was the first or second top-class job ever discovered, and it was incredibly popular and powerful. Momo had chosen it to fight Lycagon simply because it was the strongest option available. To obtain it, countless players with the Sword Adept job entered the tournaments. Those tournaments were PvP events in which every participant was highly skilled. Any player who fulfilled all the conditions belonged to the highest level of the hardcore player base, and most of them led one of the game's top clans. Katsuo understood that Saiger 100 belonged to the legendary generation of Masters of the Sword, from a time when the job was impossible to obtain unless a player was extraordinarily skilled. Because of that, it was no wonder acquiring it had been such an ordeal. He also understood why Saiger 100 was so skilled in PvP matches, and he told himself that he had wasted his opportunity. If he had only endured longer and stopped worrying about embarrassing himself, he might have won. Hyogoku said that the update had made Master of the Sword easier to obtain and had weakened it as well. Because of that, along with the discovery of other top-level jobs, players eventually stopped trying to acquire it. Katsuo was surprised that what they were seeing from Saiger 100 was the weakened version because it still appeared to offer so many advantages. Hyogoku said that was not exactly the case. What Katsuo was seeing was the result of Saiger 100's skills and just how talented she was. If a player possessed the right skills and enough determination to accomplish something, there was only so much nerfing could do. Back with the two fighters, Sunraku said that he was certain Saiger 100 had already realized that one of the buffs he was using was Levin Trigger Hazard. To be precise, it came with certain disadvantages whenever he used it for longer than 10 seconds. In other words, he would die even if Saiger 100 struck him with an extremely weak attack. She then realized that it was a percentage-type damage over time skill and asked Sunraku why he was not attacking. He replied that perhaps he was simply waiting for Saiger 100 to bring out a rouse, which surprised her. Sunraku added that it was a special skill granted by Saiger 100's wished weapon, which increased all her stats except HP and MP. He also asked whether it only activated when her HP became critically low. He added that he was willing to bet she was already close to triggering it. On the sidelines, Rebellious was delighted to learn that their leader still had another buff remaining, while Saiger 100 appeared in thought. Sunraku said that he already knew how skilled she was at PvP and asked whether she now understood what he was suggesting. He did not know whether Saiger 100 was waiting for the proper moment to activate a rouse, but all his little tricks were probably becoming difficult for her to deal with. All he was saying was that she should bring out everything she had so they could end the battle with a full frontal assault. At that moment, Saiger 100 remembered the sword tournaments, and using one of her servant swords, she attacked herself. She received 18 damage and said that she would accept Sunraku's hint. She had now fulfilled the conditions required to trigger what he wanted, so she activated a rouse. Pencilgon then said that Saiger 100 had now activated every buff she possessed, while Hyogoku mentioned that both fighters had critically low HP. According to Katsuo, from that point onward, a single split-second decision could bring everything to an end. It was a super agile twin blade user backed against the wall, against a magical sword user who had even injured herself merely to obtain one more buff. The two stared deeply and sharply at each other at that moment, before charging simultaneously. They clashed head-on as all of Saiger 100's swords flew throughout the arena. The two moved all over the battlefield while exchanging attacks, but neither of them gave in or allowed themselves to be defeated. Saiger 100 even used Sorvin's Quartet, but Sunraku managed to evade it. She followed it with Sorvin's Trio, which Sunraku faced without fear. In fact, he charged straight forward, and it appeared that both of them were about to strike each other simultaneously. On the sidelines, Rebellious could not believe that a battle of that level could take place in PvP, while the entire Wolfgang clan watched closely. Back with the two fighters, Saiger 100 told herself that what she needed to take out was not Sunraku's HP, but his concentration. Sunraku laughed, realizing that Saiger 100 was aiming for the same thing. Both of them were pushing their concentration to its limit against the other, so whoever lost focus first would be defeated. It was a deadly game of chicken fought using their powers of concentration. At that moment, Sunraku received a notification and said that everything was ready. After that, he equipped the Lapistella cloak and announced that it was time for the battle's climax. Saiger 100 was surprised when she saw Sunraku put on the Lapistella cloak. She told herself that although she did not know every detail, Sunraku had been wearing it both times he teleported, so she wondered whether he intended to attempt another surprise attack. She also considered that he might try another equipment switching attack. She told herself that she could not overthink Sunraku because one wrong move would mean the end for her. All she needed to do was keep striking him repeatedly, no matter what happened. At that moment, Sunraku began chanting a spell, surprising Saiger 100. As Sunraku continued casting, Katso stared in complete shock from the sidelines, while Pencilgon was equally surprised and asked whether Sunraku possessed magic. Sunraku's chant mentioned an astrograph shining in the heavens, while Saiger 100 told herself that she had never heard that chant before and wondered whether it was another kind of unique skill. Rebellious could not believe that Sunraku possessed yet another hidden trick, while Sunraku continued chanting. Saiger 100 then asked whether she had underestimated him that badly. However, she told herself that Sunraku was incapable of casting chant-type magic. Even if he could, he would not cast a spell that disrupted his own concentration. On top of that, the chant had no consistent theme, so she realized that it was nothing more than a bluff. It was a stupid child's prank that she would crush using her best move. Sunraku immediately sensed that, and he leaped away. Saiger 100 declared that the battle was over and struck Sunraku with Electro Stun. It hit him directly, but Saiger 100 noticed something strange, while Sunraku grinned. He told himself that Saiger 100 had made the wrong decision because that was exactly what he had wanted to see from her. The entire Wolfgang clan was shocked when Electro Stun landed directly, but Saiger 100 herself did not appear pleased. It turned out that the Lapistella cloak had received the Electro Stun, causing Sunraku to grin from ear to ear. Saiger 100 was irritated that she had only struck his cloak, while he continued chanting. At the same time, Sunraku tried to attack Saiger 100, who retaliated with attacks of her own, although he managed to evade them. The leader of Schwarzwolf asked how much longer Sunraku intended to continue his meaningless chanting because she already knew it was a bluff. In response, Sunraku slipped the words Electro Stun into his chant and managed to cast Electro Stun on Saiger 100, shocking her as she leaped away. She could not believe what had happened, but there was no doubt that Sunraku had used Electro Stun against her. Even Pencilgon was surprised that Sunraku had pulled it off, while he was delighted that his plan had succeeded. He said that as long as the words were spoken correctly, they would count as a chant even if everything else he said was completely made up. Saiger Zero was surprised that Sunraku's words had been recognized as a chant, and she understood that the fake chant he had been reciting was concealing what he was actually doing. Kyogoku asked how that had allowed Sunraku to cast Electro Stun. Sunraku explained that magic was applied to the Lapistella cloak by casting a spell that targeted the cloak itself. It did not matter whether the caster was an enemy or an ally. As long as the magic was compatible with the cloak, it would work. As he removed the cloak, he added that it was only a one-time trick, but it had definitely worked. Saiger 100 wondered why. Under such extreme conditions where either of them would die from one clean hit, Sunraku had chosen to gamble on Electro-Stun. It was then revealed that she only had 12 HP remaining, and she wondered whether that was the cloak's doing. Sunraku said that they could discuss it during the post-game recap. For now, he would continue applying pressure, and it was shown that his union gauge had reached its maximum. Because of that, Sunraku combined his swords and transformed them into the Whale Lore Union Pale Sheen, surprising Saiger 100, who asked whether that was his finishing move. Sunraku sarcastically replied, "Who knows?" before using Vorpal's sword arts, Half Moon Cleave, unleashing a massive direct slash towards Saiger 100. She managed to evade it, which Sunraku could not accept because her legs were no longer able to move. Saiger 100 shouted that she had successfully avoided Sunraku's attack and unleashed a slash of her own, saying that all he had accomplished was preventing her from moving. With her experience in PvP, she would never allow something like that to defeat her. However, the only thing she struck was Pale Sheen, which confused her. Sunraku had already leaped into the air, and as he prepared to punch Saiger 100 with the Gilta Brill, he said that her words were the famous last words of someone who did not know when to surrender. He then told her to die and struck her with the Gilta Brill. Saiger 100 was completely shocked and was sent flying a great distance by Sunraku's punch. He was delighted that his attack had connected, while the entire Schwarzwolf clan and even Wolfgang were stunned by what they had witnessed. However, the battle was not over because Saiger 100 was still standing, which surprised Sunraku. The leader of Schwarzwolf still had 1 HP remaining because her clincher had activated. Sunraku immediately realized what had happened, while Katsuo also understood that it was caused by the arouse effect. Naturally, the Schwarzwolf members were delighted that their leader had succeeded in the 1 in 4 random roll. Sunraku said that RNG had saved Saiger 100, but he was not finished yet. As he said that, he retrieved Pale Sheen and followed it by using Formula Drift, while his opponent put away her servant swords. Katsuo was surprised by that, while Pencilgon asked whether she was bringing out a new set. Saiger 100 then told herself that during the final rush of the battle, stats such as strength and vitality no longer mattered. Because of that, she needed to switch to swords that were better suited for tech, agility, and luck, so she drew weapons that enhanced those kinds of stats. Sunraku said that it was still his turn to attack. One of the newly drawn swords attempted to block him, but he easily avoided it. Throughout everything, Saiger 100 never took her eyes off him and prepared to attack when he came close. Sunraku said that her positioning was perfect and asked whether Saiger 100's numb legs could respond to what he was about to do. He was referring to the sword drawing skills granted by Pale Sheen. In response, Saiger 100 used Sorvent's trio once again, alarming Sunraku. He praised Saiger 100 for reading his next move, but said that he intended to do far more than perform a quick and out strike. He then launched his attack and said that he could accomplish it with the help of Dissipator and Levin Trigger Hazard, along with Flame and Lightning. After that, he used an ultra-high-speed approach, while Saiger 100 released Synchronist. However, she was already too late because Sunraku had moved beyond the place where her clones appeared, causing her to realize just how fast he was. She thought that the 2 clones in front would not be able to catch him, but from where she was standing, Sunraku was at a disadvantage against her. However, Sunraku said that he held an even greater advantage over Saiger 100, which appeared to surprise her. He then used Sighten-style finisher number 1, Heikaze. He combined it with Eclipse Vorpal and slashed Saiger 100 across the stomach. With a divine speed sword draw, she suffered tremendous pain from the attack, while the spectators stared in complete shock at what had happened. Saiger 100's HP was completely depleted, and Sunraku appeared pleased. However, he suddenly looked surprised and said that although he knew luck was a talent, Saiger 100's luck was simply ridiculous. It turned out that she was still alive, and she said that every hero knew persistence was what won battles. The reason she had not died completely was that Unbroken had activated, granting her a 25% chance of reviving with 10% of her HP. Katsuo was shocked when he saw that, while Pencilgon explained that it was caused by Unbroken. Sunraku could not believe Saiger 100's consecutive strokes of luck and asked what kind of RNG is that. He was also irritated because he was suffering from the recoil of Heikaze, which had consumed all his stamina. If they engaged in a full frontal exchange of sword slashes at that moment, he would undoubtedly lose. At the same time, Saiger 100 drew a new sword and said that considering the power of the skills Sunraku had unleashed, she was certain they also carried penalties. After saying that, she attacked herself and received 18 damage, reducing her HP to 12. That triggered Grap Blood, boosting her stamina, which activated whenever she injured herself, and she declared that it was time to end the battle. Sunraku asked whether there was any feature Saiger 100 did not possess, and decided that it was time to make his final wager. He activated Shaneo Possession and leaped extremely high into the sky. Rebellious saw him, while Dine Dasher asked whether Sunraku intended to run from their leader until his stamina recovered. As Saiger 100 dismissed her servant swords, she told Sunraku not to bother trying that. She still had a small amount of MP remaining, which was enough for one final Sorvent spell. She then used Sorvent Solo, Primal Slash, confident that she would not miss. Sunraku saw it coming, but there was nothing he could do, and the attack struck him directly in the chest. Saiger Zero and Kyogoku were shocked, while the Schwarz-Wolf members celebrated. However, Saiger 100 did not appear pleased, because something felt strange. She felt as though her attack had not connected, and noticed that it had merely passed through Sunraku. At that moment, Sunraku stabbed her right shoulder, leaving her unable to respond. He then asked whether she had become too distracted by his clone in the sky. It had only been a simple illusion called Mirror of Fading, which shocked the entire Wolfgang clan. Sunraku explained that while he was in the sky, he had used Mirror of Fading and combined it with Flitfoot to immediately return to the ground and attack. He then charged directly towards Saiger 100 and stabbed her with the Dukas Ram. He even asked whether she could finally die. He was also about to say something about Saiger 100 becoming a hero if she did, but something surprised him, along with the entire Schwarz-Wolf clan. Saiger 100 had triggered yet another clincher. She even mockingly apologized to Sunraku and said that him dreaming for her to die won't let him reach it. At the same time, she drew Las Pegasus and threw it directly at Sunraku's Dukas Ram. It struck the weapon directly and left him completely open. Sunraku also noticed that his Dukas Ram's durability did not decrease whenever he landed a critical hit. After that, he threw Las Pegasus aside and said that his dream of defeating Saiger 100 had not been shattered yet. Saiger 100 had no MP remaining, but she said that she was still there. On the other hand, Sunraku had no stamina left. Saiger 100 told herself that her servant's swords were gone, but a sword fighter only needed one sword. After that, the two prepared to clash once again, while Sunraku returned to fighting like Fugaku, which Kyogoku noticed. Saiger 100 then unleashed her final slash, while Sunraku said that what he was about to do was the proper way to fight a single sword style. He parried Saiger 100's sword with one of his blades, and used the other to guide it in the direction he wanted. Wolfgang was shocked, but the problem was that Sunraku had no stamina remaining. Saiger 100 said that he no longer had enough stamina to raise his sword, so that was the end. However, she suddenly noticed his swords and asked why they had changed after he landed. Sunraku had not had enough time to do that, so she wondered why he had done it. At that moment, Sunraku asked whether Saiger 100 had checked the weather forecast. If she had, then she would know that it would be sunny, with an occasional moonblade or two. As he said that, his moonblade descended behind Saiger 100 and struck her, causing her tremendous pain. The spectators from both clans stared in complete shock, while Saiger 100 asked why the moonblade had fallen from above. After that, her HP finally reached 0, leaving Sunraku as the only one still standing. He had finally killed Saiger 100. Sunraku then explained that one aspect of the wished weapon she had repeatedly used carried a 1% chance of triggering an effect he could not afford to allow. He added that he had not used Mirror of Fading to conceal himself, but to conceal the additional attack he called Moonblade. Saiger 100 then realized that Sunraku had hidden his weapon within the illusion, and that their final exchange of slashes had been designed to guide her toward his intended landing point. It had all been a ruse to conceal his second move, and as her final words, she praised what Sunraku had accomplished. She accepted that the team battle belonged to Sunraku and the rest of Wolfgang, who had emerged victorious. Wolfgang was officially declared the winner of that clan battle, and Saiger 100 said that, as the vanquished, she praises Sunraku, while Rebellious and his followers were clearly unhappy. Saiger 100 added that it was now clear to her that Sunraku's victory over Lycagon had not been a fluke. Sunraku said that he also wanted to congratulate Saiger 100 on a good game. She truly was the leader of Schwarzwolf because their battle had exceeded his expectations. However, he asked whether the possibilities offered to Saiger 100 by Master of the Sword were practically endless. He thought that if they had not restricted the use of healing items, she would have adopted a different strategy, and she had not even shown him all of her swords. Saiger 100 said that she had not been holding back during that battle. She had fought as optimally as she could, and she had lost. On top of that, she asked whether Sunraku was really one to say that she had not revealed everything, because she doubted that he had shown his entire arsenal either. Sunraku laughed when he heard that and mockingly asked who could say whether he had truly revealed his entire arsenal. Behind them, Rebellious was extremely irritated, which Katsuo noticed. Pencilgon said that it looked like Saiger 100 was the only one willing to praise them. After that, Katsuo approached Rebellious and extended his hand for a handshake, but Rebellious could be seen trembling as though he did not know what to do. He was still salty about losing to Katsuo, and he slapped his hand away while telling him to stay away. He also told Wolfgang not to get arrogant because they had not proven anything to them yet. At the same time, he walked out, and his followers went after him. Katsuo could not understand what Rebellious meant by saying they had not proven anything, because they had just proven that Schwarzwolf were the losers that day. Sunraku was surprised by Rebellious's attitude after the poor performance he had shown in battle and sarcastically remarked that he had genuine talent. Saiger 100 said that they should simply call it a little youthful rebellion and forget about it. Katsuo then asked whether Saiger 100 truly believed that would be enough to silence the hardliners in Schwarzwolf, because he felt that they would cling to their positions no matter what happened. Saiger 100 agreed and said that this would not be the last they heard from them. However, her battle with Sunraku had helped her make a decision. Sunraku and Saiger 0 wondered what it was, and Saiger 100 said that the reason she played SLF was to defeat Lycagon the Night Slayer. However, Schwarzwolf had become too built up and too large. Somewhere along the way, they had lost sight of their path, and she feared that the clan had become too bloated to defeat Lycagon. Because of that, she was leaving Schwarzwolf and creating a new clan that would be laser-focused on defeating Lycagon. She would call it Blackblade. At the same time, the Schwarzwolf logo disappeared from her clothing. The entire Wolfgang clan was shocked, and Saiger 0 could not believe it. Even Sunraku and Katsuo were trying to process what had happened, while Pencilgon looked as though she had already known. She said that she had already been speaking with the moderates led by Saiger 100. She explained that the hardliners would remain behind to form the new Schwarzwolf, while the moderates would break away and join the new clan, Blackblade. Pencilgon thought that Saiger 100 had said this would be her final option and asked whether Momo was truly fine with it. Saiger 100 replied that she should have committed to that decision much sooner. Perhaps she had been the one clinging to Schwarzwolf for no real reason. Because of that, from that point onward, she would speak on behalf of Blackblade rather than Schwarzwolf. Blackblade would also accept the conditions proposed by Wolfgang and officially request to join their alliance. Pencilgon happily accepted and shook Saiger 100's hand. Sunraku fell into thought as all of this happened, and said that this had apparently been Saiger 100's scheme, which confused Katsuo. Sunraku said that Pencilgon's real goal had been to make him fight Saiger 100 and force her to form a new clan. Katsuo said that they had never needed all of Schwarzwolf in their alliance anyway, and removing the hardliners greatly benefited them. Sunraku then admitted that his battle against Saiger 100 had been excellent, so perhaps he would settle for being a useful pawn just this once. He did not like it, but they needed it. On top of that, he was completely exhausted from using Levin Trigger Hazard in PvP, so he thought he would log out for the day. At the same time, Saiger 100 thanked the entire Wolfgang clan and looked toward her younger sister. She told Saiger 0 that she had joined a good clan, and there was something else she wanted to mention about Sunraku. She teased Saiger 0 by saying that she seemed to have found herself a good man, shocking her. Sunraku also wondered what she meant, while Saiger 0 stammered and asked whether her older sister had been evaluating Sunraku for her throughout the entire battle. Meanwhile, Someone was clearly unhappy, and Saiger 100 said that it looked like it was time for her to leave. She even walked past Kyogoku after saying that, and the irritation on Kyogoku's face was obvious. She still could not accept her defeat against Saiger 100, who remarked that it looked like someone had run out of patience. Pencilgon laughed because Saiger 100 had even noticed how irritated Kyogoku was. Kyogoku then exploded and asked Sunraku who he really was. She also asked whether he was one of the students from her dojo or something, confusing Sunraku. To Kyogoku, Sunraku's movements were incredibly close to those of her grandfather, even closer than what she herself had managed to achieve, despite having watched him up close more often than anyone else. On top of that, she asked where Sunraku had learned the final move he used. She also demanded to know how he had learned all of Fugaku Ryugen's movements. And because she was becoming so angry, Saiger Zero told her to calm down. Sunraku was confused by Kyogoku's question and replied that there was a game supervised by her grandfather. Kyogoku appeared shocked when she heard that, and immediately thought of VR Kendo School Ultimate. She assumed Sunraku was messing with her because there was no way he could have learned the things he had done from the ragdolls in that game. She even said that if Sunraku continued hiding the truth, then he should fight her right there. She even had a proposal for what would happen if she won, but Sunraku interrupted and said that he had not fought the ragdolls. He was referring to the AI trace of Fugaku Ryugen that existed inside the game itself. Kyogoku was confused, and Sunraku added that after completing the game, players could enter a special password to fight Fugaku as a secret boss. Kyogoku was confused again when she heard that, while Saiger Zero asked whether she truly did not know about it. Kyogoku asked whether it was really that well known, and Saiger Zero replied that it was among people who had spent a lot of time playing the game. Kyogoku then said that she genuinely had not known, but before she could finish, Sunraku said that he was completely exhausted, so perhaps he and Kyogoku could fight another time. Besides, he might get reported if he continued beating up women all day. At the same time, Kyogoku struck him and sent him flying. She said that she still had something she needed to do, so she would be logging out for the time being. Sunraku asked what was wrong with her because she had been so eager to fight and was now suddenly leaving. Katsuo said that he had still wanted to tease Kyogoku some more. However, after watching Sunraku's intense battle from up close, he could now understand why she wanted to fight him. He even joked that Kyogoku had been moving at twice her normal speed, while Sunraku replied her hit towards him hurt a little. After that, Katsuo asked whether Sunraku wanted to fight him, but Sunraku replied that he had already said he was tired. He was going to log off and sleep. He just wanted to lie around under the sun for about 3 hours. At that moment, Pencilgon said that there was something she wanted to tell Sunraku. In a quiet and embarrassed voice, she said that there was something else she needed to apologize for. Sunraku wondered what she meant, but he was completely shocked when he saw that she was hiding a grin behind her hand. He immediately became alarmed, and from above him, a woman carrying a shield came crashing down on top of him. She landed directly on Sunraku, while Katsuo and Saiger Zero stared in surprise from the side. The woman with the shield said that she had secured Sunraku, which shocked him. She told him that he would not disappear on her again like last time because she now understood how that worked. Sunraku recognized the woman as Josette, the leader of the Shining Knights of the Holy Shield. After that, someone else arrived while laughing and said that Sunraku's battle had been absolutely fascinating. It was Professor, and he said that he had several questions and concerns he wanted to ask about, especially regarding Gold Hunine. Sunraku was shocked and could not believe that the library clan was there as well, so he asked what they were doing there. Pencilgon had said that no one else could enter, so he wanted to know what was happening. Pencilgon replied in a cute but teasing manner that the two of them had begged her to let them in, and they had been given a box seat view from a location Sunraku could not see. Besides, they were part of an alliance, so they needed to help one another. Sunraku then realized that Pencilgon had sold him out yet again and began struggling to break free. Katsuo said that he looked like a fish flapping around on the dock. Sunraku even asked what kind of natural-born villain Pencilgon was. Josette then apologized and said that they no longer had time to play around. Their leader, Saint Aristella, was summoning Sunraku and wanted him to appear before her, which he would, then asked whether he would do so. In the next scene, the story shifted to a village in the world of SLF, where there was a carriage. Inside it, Josette said that Saint Aristella's manor was only 5 minutes away by carriage. Sunraku asked whether it was some kind of prison transport because she had put him inside with his hands and feet tied. Josette laughed and said that she was hardly going to drag Sunraku all the way there, so he should not worry. She was also certain that Sunraku knew that many players were searching for him, and it would be troublesome for them if anyone spotted them together. She also knew that he would try to escape amid the commotion, so the carriage was their best option. She added that it had been Sunraku's friend who suggested it, not her, and he immediately realized that she meant pencil gone. Sunraku told himself that Josette's personality was completely different whenever she was in character inside the game. He actually liked it when people roleplayed because it showed that the player genuinely took the world of SLF seriously. At that moment, Josette was staring closely at Sunraku, which he noticed, so he asked what was wrong. Josette said that she did not mean anything personal, but Aristella possessed a certain pure and sacred aura, and she asked whether Sunraku understood what she meant. He hesitantly replied that he did. Josette added that she was worried it might become a problem if Aristella saw a half-naked man. Of course, she meant that strictly from a role-playing perspective, and she asked Sunraku whether he understood what she was getting at. Sunraku finally understood what Josette meant, and said that he had no problem changing his equipment, but before he could finish, Josette asked whether he could change genders for her. Sunraku was surprised that this was the problem and asked whether he could simply cover his body with a cloak instead. However, Josette pleaded with him to change his gender, so he eventually agreed. After that, he brought out the blue grail used for gender swapping and activated it inside the carriage, producing a bright light that confused the people outside. He then asked Josette, who looked completely amazed, whether that was good enough now that he was a woman. Josette could only repeatedly stammer the sound BA, which confused Sunraku. It turned out that she thought Sunraku looked adorable with his coquettish appearance, round eyes, and outrageously seductive proportions. She even called him a ball of hotness and said that crossplay was not so bad after all. Sunraku did not understand what she meant, while Josette asked why he didn't just stay that way. He replied that the effect disappeared whenever he died. Upon hearing that, Josette told him not to worry because she would protect him from the entire world. Because of that, Sunraku apologized for ever thinking Josette was serious. A little later, the carriage stopped moving, and Josette said that she believed they had arrived. After that, she stepped out and asked whether Sunraku would accompany her because the saint was waiting for him. Sunraku was surprised by what he saw because a huge number of knights were standing there waiting. He said that he would go with her if that was all right with Josette, and he also noticed that the knights had names such as Salvrut and Kratos. He then realized that they were not NPCs at all, and that the entire clan was participating in the roleplay, which impressed him. After that, he asked whether Saint Aristella was inside the mansion, and Josette replied that he was. However, before Sunraku entered, he needed to wear the item she was handing him because she could not allow him to enter the saint's divine domain dressed as he currently was. Sunraku agreed, and thought that if he was going to wear something like that anyway, then perhaps he could have simply remained male. After that, the two of them entered, and Sunraku put on the dress Josette had given him. Josette then took a deep breath and straightened herself, before formally introducing Sunraku to Saint Aristella, whom they had discussed earlier. The saint allowed them to enter, and Josette whispered to Sunraku that he needed to be on his best behavior. Once they entered, someone explained that there was an idol-like NPC in SLF who was loved not only by the Saint's Divine Guard, but also by many actual players, and her name was Aristella, the Saint of Love. She greeted the two of them and introduced herself to Sunraku. She even said that he was honored to be relied upon as everyone's saint. Sunraku was amazed and said that there was no question why Aristella had such a fancy fan club. Her modeling and character design were on a completely different level compared to most NPCs. Aristella then asked whether Sunraku was really the person accompanying Josette because she had been told that Sunraku was a man. At that moment, Josette reminded Sunraku to remain on his best behavior, and he told himself that he already knew that. He had completed plenty of storylines in other games, so he could act like the perfect noblewoman. After that, he greeted Saint Aristella and introduced himself. He was about to say that he was merely a humble adventurer, but before he could finish, the clothes Josette had made him were suddenly tore apart. The leader of the Shining Knights of the Holy Shield was shocked, as was the Saint, and it turned out that Lycagon's contusion had caused it. Aristella questioned Sunraku's claim of being humble, while Sunraku told her to never mind that, saying it was simply an affliction of his. Josette was trembling at that moment, leaving Sunraku unsure whether she was angry or trying not to laugh. He also had difficulty reading Aristella's reaction and could not tell whether the Saint was holding back laughter or thought he was complete garbage. Sunraku even wondered whether he should try to defend himself and began explaining. However, Aristella mentioned his contusion and said that because of it, Sunraku truly appeared to be the real Sunraku. After that, Aristella thanked Josette because she had wanted to meet one of the people who defeated the 7 Colossi, and she had made that wish come true, which surprised Sunraku. Josette said that she would fulfill anything Aristella wished for at any time, and her team would step up to make it happen. Sunraku wondered why the Saint had wanted to meet him and doubted that Aristella had summoned him there merely to have a conversation. Aristella then said that her motivation for summoning Sunraku was selfish. She had a certain request for him, one that was appropriate for a player as powerful as Sunraku. After that, the scene returned to the arena, where Professor was extremely pleased with the meeting they had held and called it meaningful, so he praised Pencilgon. He said that he had not expected to obtain new information so quickly, while Pencilgon thanked him for all the intelligence he had provided them. Professor added that it was unfortunate that he had been interrupted before he could ask Sunraku everything he wanted to know, although he had noticed that Josette had been in a hurry. Pencilgon told Professor not to worry because she would make sure to interrogate Sunraku properly. She believed there were still things Sunraku had not told her. Professor said that, in that case, he would be leaving. He thanked Wolfgang once again and said that he would return soon for more. After Professor left, Katso said that he was going to log out as well. Pencilgon remarked that Siger Zero was already gone too, so it did not seem like the right time for a victory party. Before leaving, Katso mentioned that while he had been offline for a short while, an incredible amount had happened, and not only to Sunraku. The new land was already there, and Pencilgon said that she needed to have a long conversation with Momo about it, which confused Katso. Pencilgon grinned and added that the new land was simply too inviting for them to ignore. Back with Sunraku, he was surprised that Saint Aristella had a job for him, and she said that she wanted Sunraku to guard a certain person for her. To accomplish that, Sunraku would accompany Josette on a journey to the new land. Sunraku then unlocked a new quest called Trust of a Saint, which appeared to surprise him. Sunraku was puzzled by the normal quest in front of him because it was not a unique quest, and he told himself that this was a first for him. He also thought about how the new land had only recently been added in an update, so he knew nothing about it. He even asked whether the person he was supposed to protect was a resident of the new land. Aristella replied that she was not, and said that, for now, that person was still in the country where they currently were. However, she did not know where to begin explaining everything. First, she said that not long from that point, the country would fall under a coup, which confused Sunraku. Saint Aristella added that the coup would be led by the nation's crown prince, a man named Alex, and that in the end, it would succeed. That surprised Sunraku even more, causing Aristella to wonder why. Sunraku said that judging by the way the saint spoke, he wanted to know why she was so certain about the coup, its leader, and what the outcome would be. He even accused Aristella of secretly orchestrating the coup behind the scenes. But before he could finish, Josette scolded him. She insisted that Aristella would never do something like that, but the saint stopped her. Aristella said that it was a perfectly valid conclusion to draw from what she had said. She also apologized because she had difficulty explaining things in a comprehensible order. She then explained that she could see and hear what was happening in the present, as well as what was yet to come. Sunraku was shocked and asked whether Aristella could see the future. He had assumed that she could remove Lycagon's curse from him, so he could not believe that she was also clairvoyant, and he wondered what kind of NPC she was. Sunraku even thought that if he could use that ability to his advantage, he could obtain advanced information about new worldwide events before the library or the other frontline players even knew what was happening, which would be an enormous advantage for Wolfgang. However, he thought that this must be the reason Josette's clan kept Aristella hidden, pretending to worship her so they could monopolize her knowledge of the future. However, when he looked at Josette, She seemed almost crazed at the very thought of Aristella becoming angry, making him wonder whether they genuinely did worship her. After that, Aristella returned the conversation to their original topic and said that Prince Alex, the mastermind behind the coup, would arrange for himself to serve as their leader while the king was away on an observational journey to the new land. However, that was merely the cover story. The real reason the king would be traveling was so that he could be killed there, outside his own country. Sunraku finally understood his role in the story and asked whether Aristella wanted him to travel to the new land and prevent the king from being killed. He also realized that this was why she had been searching for a highly skilled player with at least some connection to that country. Saint Aristella confirmed that he was correct. Sunraku then clarified whether the crown prince was truly planning the coup and asked why he could not simply wait until he naturally inherited the throne. Aristella replied that her vision was still unclear and that she no longer wanted to see any more of it. However, one thing was clear to her: it would happen once the king was already in the new land. Sunraku then realized that Aristella possessed limited clairvoyance and thought it was strange. He even wondered what kind of limitations or restrictions the ability had and asked the saint whether the incident would happen on the way to the new land. At that moment, Aristella noticed that a mole was not with Sunraku, and he asked her whether she knew the bunny. Sunraku then looked at Josette after that and told himself not to say too much about Rabbituza because it was valuable information. Aristella replied that she did not know a mole, but she had spoken with her father before. Sunraku was pleased because Aristella had not mentioned Visash's name, which confused Josette. After that, Aristella mentioned that there was another reason she had trusted Sunraku enough to summon him there. She then summarized her request. Sunraku's mission was to keep the king safe during his journey to the Tri-Divinity Church located in the new land and prevent his assassination. Sunraku said that if a friend of the king was asking him for a favor, then he could not refuse. He officially accepted the trust of a saint quest and said that he would keep the king safe. After that, the scene shifted to the real world, inside Utopia's office. Tsukiyo Tsukuri was there, the genius game designer responsible for SLF's world setting, story, and ecosystem. She asked her colleague whether she understood what she was proposing. The other woman replied that she did and promised that she was not joking. Her name was Ritsu Amachi, the head of development responsible for SLF systems, performance, and quality control. What she wanted to do was erase all data related to the player named Sunraku because she believed they needed to ban him. Tsukiyo clearly did not like that idea and said that she would love to hear about Ritsu's screw-ups because they would make excellent drinking conversation. However, Ritsu could not worsen her trauma by dragging her into that nonsense as well, which surprised her. Tsukiyo added that Ritsu knew exactly what she was talking about and called her survival gunman, shocking her even more. She said that she assumed Ritsu had looked into Sunraku's VR account and scoped out his play history. She also asked whether he had been involved with one of the big three, Gamma Gunman, Phi Wilding, and the Moose server. Ritsu became irritated when she heard that, while Tsukiyo added that she had probably found other similar games as well, which was why she was trying to remove Sunraku from SLF. She even asked whether Ritsu was certain that what she was doing was acceptable from a compliance standpoint. Ritsu insisted that Tsukiyo was doing the same thing if she knew everything Ritsu knew. Tsukiyo replied that Ritsu did not understand her point. She was a hard ass when it came to rules, but the moment something involved the game created by her father, she started banning people based on personal grudges. Tsukiyo asked whether Ritsu had any idea how hypocritical that made her. After hearing that, Ritsu finally exploded in anger and told Tsukiyo to shut up while kicking her desk. She hurt herself doing it, while Tsukiyo said that Ritsu turned into a crazed monster whenever her father became involved, although she respected him too. Ritsu said that she was not there to talk about her idiot of a father because he could destroy himself for all she cared, but he never did. The game he created had nearly destroyed the entire VR gaming industry. She refused to accept that, and she would create the perfect game and prove that she was more talented than her asshole father. That was why she could not allow anything to go wrong in SLF. If anyone stood in the way of that, she would force them to fall in line, and that included Tsukiyo. Tsukiyo said that Ritsu had finally said it out loud, but her answer was still no. She had her own credo to uphold, and players were not the only people she could ban for bullshit behavior, which shocked Ritsu. However, if Ritsu wanted to create the perfect game, Tsukiyo agreed with that goal. She would make the world of SLF better because doing so served her own purpose, and that was why she would not fire Ritsu. Ritsu simply walked out after hearing that, and remarked on how calm Tsukiyo was. She even asked whether she had watched the team battle between Wolfgang and Schwarzwolf, and mentioned that Sunraku had already encountered Gold Hunine. After Ritsu left, Tsukiyo looked at Sunraku's file and laughed. She admitted that Katarnid's defeat had irritated her, but it had shown her how the third stage worked, which was a silver lining. She added that even if the dragons were defective, she loved every one of them equally. They were all part of what made Shangri-La what it was, and now it was time for Seagworm to crush the players. She said that he would give her plenty of ways to fight off her boredom. With that, the new chapter titled Dragon Upon Dragon officially began, off to unravel the truth and the unknown.